So, good morning, dear friends, colleagues, guests. We are ready to start again. We got a thumbs up for our online colleagues and guests as well. So, warm welcome to this second day of our AI workshop. I hope you did have all a nice evening yesterday and that we start with the spirit from yesterday on agility for the AI topic today and finalize very important topics as well. And I'm very pleased that I can introduce the first topic again. As a neurologist and psychiatrist, I know very well about the Dravet syndrome and its consequences. And I would like to introduce to you Julian Isla. He is a well-known member of our community and our regulatory work. He is a member of the Orphan Drug Committee here at the EMA, and he is the founder of Fundación 29, a non-profit organization that uses AI to empower people to make decisions about their health based on scientific data and intelligent systems. And I remember very well when he introduced with his Microsoft background the first AI tools to us and what we can do with large language models and how they work and how they might influence our regulatory work. So it's a very great pleasure for us to hear from you, Julian, today about your experience and rethinking clinical time matching using AI. Over to you.
Thank you very much for this comprehensive presentation, Carl. I'm happy to be here, and thank you to the EMA and the HMA because of the opportunity to come here again to this workshop, and apologize for not being able to be here yesterday. As Carl already mentioned, I'm a member of the Orphan Drug Committee, the European Medicine Agency. I'm patient representative and representing the voice of European patients in this committee. In our committee, we are granting the Orphan Drug designation for new medical products for rare diseases. I'm here today and also representing the Dravet European Federation and Fundación 29, mainly Fundación 29, because I'm going to present one of the tools that we developed, or prototypes we developed the last month for regulatory use, or part of the regulatory process. I don't know if all of you guys know this picture. You can see the presentation, right? Yes, it's in your screens. I realized the importance of this picture some years ago, and somebody told to me, this is the code of life, because this is the first picture of the DNA. When Franklin made that picture, probably she was not aware it was DNA. She saw something, an helicoid or something, a figure, and you know what happened after that picture. The DNA was discovered, and the DNA was able to change science. In the same way that this picture changed science and allow us to see more things, something very important happened in technology 10 years ago, or even less. The problem we face in the computer engineers like me is that when you are dealing with sentences, when you are dealing with vocabulary, when you are dealing with words, you probably will face a computational issue. The problem with dealing with high amount of data is if you are not very careful, you are reaching a problem which is you increase the computational need. And this is an issue that happened several years ago, and this is the reason why natural language processing and all these technologies were so limited. If you remember how translators, they work in the past, they were not very good, right? But something very important that happened is that at the end of the last decade, the transformers and this type of solution changed everything, because we were able to move the word from this high increased computational level into less computational level. And this changed everything, not just for letters, not just for vocabulary, not just for sentences, but for a lot of things. The word that created this or solved that problem was the very popular paper from Google, which is the presentation of the transformers. In 2017, we saw the code of language. We were able to identify how transformers and the attention, the mechanism of attention, change the way we solve problems in computer science. This is very important. This is the paper that my colleagues from Google released on 2017. And they are the foundings of everything that you are seeing right now. All the large language models that you can see right now, ChatGPT, Gemini, the commercial models, the open source model, Mistral, Llama, all these things are coming from this paper. This is the equivalent of the photograph of Franklin several years ago. The thing is, sorry for that. Language is very important for humans. When right now I'm trying to send a message to you, I'm trying to release some neuromodulators. I'm trying to change some synaptic connections on your brains, and this is using language. When language is so important that when you say to somebody, "I love you," you are using language. And when you are thinking about a problem, when you are thinking about something that is happening in your life, you are thinking on your mother language. You know, this is so tied with the human beings that this is the reason why it's so popular right now. And this is why we are seeing this change. When we are seeing regulation, the regulatory work is based on language. When we are seeing a dossier coming from the industry, coming from a sponsor, the dossier has a lot of words, a lot of sentences, some calculations as well. Right now we are seeing more and more calculation, right? But the basic of knowledge is language. That's the reason why this is so important. When you are dealing with language, you are facing a productivity issue, which is reading. You know, the work we are doing here as evaluators is reading dossiers of 100, 200 pages. You spend a lot of time reading, and this is exactly where this type of technology can help, because you can speed up your productivity and your work in a very fast way. Today, and because Peter asked me to do a, let's say, practical session, I'm going to introduce a prototype we developed in the last months, which is Trial GPT. You know the problem we are facing in Europe. The number of people being enrolled in clinical trials is being reduced for so many reasons, right? But it's being reduced. And one of the problems that we are facing as citizens is the capacity to find patients for clinical trials, the enrollment. And the tools that we have already, they are databases where people has to go for databases and search for the right clinical trial. And our hypothesis is, can we use a large language model to facilitate that process? That's the big hypothesis. And right now, this is a video of a demo. The demo has been recorded on my computer, right? And I'm using a medical record, which is the medical record of my son. My son has Dravet syndrome, a neurological condition. And in the demo, I'm going to use the medical record of my son. I'm going to upload the medical record. An LLM is going to extract the entities from the medical record. It's going to clinical trials and CTIS to find the right clinical study. And it's going to check if the patient is eligible or not. Let me go through the demo. This is the first interface. You can search for a condition, a medicine, or whatever. But the more interesting thing is when you are using a medical record, a PDF with the medical record of the patient, because you can upload the medical record. There are some disclaimers about the use of AI, the importance of understand the results. And right now, the LLM is analyzing the medical record. It's asking to you if you are a patient or if you are a healthcare professional, because depending on the role, the answers are different. You know, if you are asking for a description, probably the description has to be different. The LLM identifies several conditions and the location. Because I was using a proxy, the location was US, but is taking the location of when the user is living, because that's important. You are looking for clinical trials close to you. And we are interrogating CTNAs and clinical trials, and we have a map of the different clinical studies, which is nice. But the most important thing is when you are clicking in a particular study, you can see the description. Sometimes the description is not easy for patients. We are asking here the LLM to provide a description, and depending on the role, the description is different. In this case, we are explaining for a patient level what was the description of the clinical study, and what means, how we're using placebo, what placebo means, all these things. And the most important thing is we are asking the large language model to make an evaluation of the eligibility. We are checking inclusion and exclusion criteria. We are flagging if the patient can be included or not. If the large language model is not sure about if the patient is eligible or not, we are putting a question mark, just to allow to the physician the possibility of checking. And at the end, the large language model is making an evaluation. Okay. The very interesting thing is because in the databases, we know the email of the principal investigator or the sponsor of the clinical trial. Something that we can do as well is send an email to the principal investigator. And right now, the LLM is building an email with all the information from the patient, with all the information about inclusion and exclusion criteria, and just copy and paste in the text. You will have an email ready from the physician to the PI in order to propose a patient. The overall process this is recorded in real time, so the overall process takes no more than 2 minutes, a couple of minutes. And also, because of some guidance from the EMA, we also were able to add information from CTIS. So right now, the user can choose between data on clinical trials and data in CTNAs. We can use both. The more interesting thing is, in order to develop this tool, we invest 2 days. Because AI is changing the way we are making tools so fast that right now developers are able to produce tools in a very fast way using the new tools. In this case, we use Cursor, which is a developer tool. One very important question are the challenges when you are developing these tools. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. The first one is the bias. Probably you yesterday talked about bias. When you are using an LLM in order to identify a patient, you have to be very careful about the bias of the large language model because the model is making assumptions. And if the model has some internal bias, it could be a mistake in the selection of the patient. That's very important. The other thing is transparency. Because this is an important activity, the large language model has to explain to you what's going on. That's the reason why we are putting the inclusion-exclusion criteria in a very specific way. This is about transparency and explicability of the models, which is very important when we are developing tools. And the most important one, the evaluation of the model. Because of the nature of the models, the models are stochastic by nature. They can make mistakes. Some people say hallucinations, some people say confabulations, whatever. They are making mistakes. As humans, we do mistakes as well. So it's very important to create a data set that you can use in order to evaluate the solutions you are doing. And make sure when the model changes, when the prompt changes, you can say, my solution performs and 95%, whatever. But the evaluation data set has to be together with the solution as well. This is something we are doing right now. We are working with a couple of hospitals in Spain in order to create the evaluation data set and be able to measure the accuracy of the model. This is that one. In this slide, you can see the specifics of this part, which is, please, the main message probably of my presentation will be, don't miss the evaluation framework. This is crucial for this type of development. Overfitting. And this is an issue that we are seeing in regulatory space. I guess, Gabriel, you explained yesterday the issue of overfitting, but in other workshop, I don't know if you have the opportunity to explain yesterday this. No? Okay. Overfitting is an issue when you are training the model intensively in one areas and you are missing some pieces of the areas with no training at all. I mean, when you are dealing with large language model, there is an issue of the latent space. The latent space is the area of knowledge when you are training the model. If you don't have enough coverage in a particular area, the model can make more mistakes on this area. And the problem we are seeing in regulatory science is because of the nature of the work we are doing, which is very, very specific. There is an issue that the large language model can have areas of low coverage. It's the opposite of overfitting, maybe. So this is a very important issue that when you are developing this type of tools, you have to be very careful. If the data set has been used, is representing the solution you are trying to find. GDPR and regulatory considerations. As you know, in Europe right now we have a situation where we have to be compliant with GDPR. We have to be compliant with AI Act. We are going to have more sessions during the day about this. And on top of this, we have the MDR, the Medical Device Regulation. This is adding complexity to the development, but this is something that you can mitigate working on this from the beginning. Don't wait until the end to be GDPR compliance. This is something you have to consider from the beginning, because if you are working on privacy by design, it's much more easier. The AIAT is also a challenge right now. I don't know exactly how the AIAT will be adopted at the end of the next year, because we are expecting an adoption. Right now, there are a lot of discussions about if we have to, change the regulation a little bit to be more flexible or not. Be careful about this, because maybe there are changes. But right now, it's the same thing that with GDPR. You have to be AIAT ready from the beginning as well to avoid surprises in the future. But you probably will need flexibility on this, because maybe there are changes on that. And the last one is the medical device regulation. The medical device regulation, we are facing this right now because for another tool we are developing in Foundation 29, we are having the first discussion with the Spanish Medicine Agency, which is the organization in Spain responsible for MDR regulation. And it's a very interesting conversation because, from the beginning, my gut feeling is, maybe this regulation is for other type of devices, not for software, because how this regulation is coming from. It's coming from doing regular medical devices, but software is different. Software is totally different. We don't have a physical asset. And I'm not sure if the regulatory process we have right now fits totally. We are learning with the Spanish agency as well on that process. And the most important problem from my point of view is regulatory overlapping right now because of the different tools. There's a clear overlapping. And I expressed this, not opinion, this fact to the European Commission when they invited to me some months ago to talk about this, is, oh my God, we have an overlapping. And the issue with this is we are a small non-profit organization. We only have a couple of full-time employees, right? And if we have to be careful about this. So for us, it's very difficult, it is. We are having a lot of help from the Spanish agency. I don't know if we have somebody from the Spanish agency, but I have to recognize we are having a lot of help. But for small companies, for startups, oh my God, probably we can simplify this a little bit. Because as you can see here in the details, I'm not going to go into the details, but they are clear overlapping. The results of this is, and this is the warning signal, is if we regulate, I don't feel very, very good saying that, because I feel myself a regulator. I've been at the EMA 12 years, so I consider myself a regulator. But if the issue is the issue, if we regulate a lot, it's going to be very difficult to develop new products in Europe. That's the message. we feel this pain from from the beginning as a small institution. So maybe we need to work together, the European Commission, the industry, the companies, the institutions, in order to, facilitate that process a little bit. Because at the end, the goal is not regulating AI, I guess. AI is a tool. It's just a tool. It's a tool that you can use. We are not regulating memories, and we use memories in computers, right? The idea really of the last call from the presentation is we need to use AI in order to facilitate our work. And the regulatory work is complex, it's difficult. And probably, if we have a strong opportunity to do things better, to less energy, and at the end, the idea is to facilitate the life of the people living in Europe with diseases, which is the population that I'm representing right here. Thank you so much.
Stay. Yeah. So thank you very much, Julian, for this extensive overview and on the complex situation. The horizontal legislation is a topic for us as regulators, and we are looking very close to this. What comes with the new pharma regulation, what is with the update of the MDR regulation and the AI Act, GDPR, all these things as you presented it. And I think you perfectly described that on the one hand, we have the high speed of development, and on the other side, the concerns. How can we then translate that in with the key challenges, bias, transparency, and the evaluation framework? So thank you very much for this presentation, and we take a few minutes for questions, comments. Again, first here in the room, and otherwise we look to the Slido. So, Bastian? Alex Kunz.
Okay, thank you. Just one question. Do you have also an ongoing monitoring somehow in place for this tool?
Right now, the tool is not in production. I mean, we are the development we are planning to do with the tool is doing with hospitals, using probably a cohort of patients, and trying to measure if the tool has efficacy, identifying the right tool, the right clinical trial for patients who has already been involved in clinical trials to confirm the tool is working. So right now we're in the stage of, finalizing the agreements with the hospitals in to do a clinical development. Okay. The tool is available online, but just maybe to the people to have an opportunity to see it. There is a lot of disclaimers at the beginning. We are really taking care of GDPR to make sure we are not storing data, all this type of protective things. But our idea is really to do a clinical development of the tool. That's very important because at the end you have to create the data set in order to go into a future medical device certification.
Is there a planned go-live date for this?
Good question. It depends on the hospitals. You know how hospitals are. Sometimes it's difficult to, push them into this direction. But our expectations is that probably we would like to finish at the middle of next year, before summer. It depends of the time needed to capture the data. And the evaluation is super important. We don't feel comfortable, putting a tool and not having the data behind the performance, especially when we are talking about clinical trials and the importance of this for so many patients.
Yeah, fully agree.
Thank you. Bastian, and then.
Thanks. Very interesting presentation. First, I fully agree with you. Software should not be considered a medical device. It should be something separate. But that is too big topic for a few minutes. You said you took 2 days to develop it, and then you talked about evaluation. And I guess the evaluation was, I mean, you already said you plan to evaluate this further. Because I saw the email which was generated and start with, I hope this email finds you well. I know if I get such an email, it will go straight to spam. Because this is not how we here write emails, but in some parts of email, WordWeb is how you write emails. So I wonder if this maybe, at this point, it's maybe a bit too much automation and you really should like trigger the people first to really check themselves, because there's always a problem. We don't know if it's correct. And any thoughts on that?
Thank you for the question. It's a very nice question, because the demo you saw today is a proof of concept. Our idea for the tool is not really that the tool will be able to send an email to the investigator. The idea is the tool could be integrated in the information systems from the hospital. And the physician, when the physician is working with a patient, the physician will have a warning saying, this patient is eligible for a clinical trial, and follow the process of the hospital, not sending emails, whatever, right? This is just a proof of concept to show the capabilities of the technology. But I don't think it's going to be the final flow for the tool and the solution. Our idea is the tool can be embedded in hospitals' systems. From our experience in Foundation 29, if you are creating parallel tools and a lot of things, the physicians will never use. They don't have time. Our ambition is that this type of tools can be embedded in the information systems from the hospitals.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
Thank you. And the last question, Gabriel, and then we have to follow up.
Yes, thank you for a very nice presentation. And I mean, it looks like a really interesting tool and a very good use case of building. And I would like to challenge you on the idea that the regulation is, if a small nonprofit enterprise can build something in a very short time and also be compliant with EU regulations, I believe that could be seen as actually proof that this can be done with limited resources to be compliant in the EU regulatory space. So I would like to compliment you on that, but challenge you on the fact that it's too difficult. I was wondering on a sort of specific ethical aspect here, when in terms of automation bias on the patient side, that things sort of slide too smoothly, because they really do seem to be a smooth system you're building, and that is that you somehow sort of remove that necessary slowness in accepting whether you should be closing into a trial which may have both benefits and risks, and whether automation of that process may sort of have too many patients signing up for things they are not fully understanding the concept of. I realize, I mean, there has to be a principal investigator and other processes, but once you're on the track, it may be that people have a more difficult time stopping than when, if not deciding to go for it at all. You see what I'm asking? Thank you.
Well, for the second question, I guess you answered yourself. I guess this is it's another part of the development. It's about usability and how this is effective finding patients at the end, because the tool is just a tool. At the end, you need to check how the tool is usable or not. I guess this is, and probably this has to be covered during the development with the hospitals, not at that level. You know, regarding the challenge, yeah, it's a challenge. But you know, I started a patient organization 17 years ago, looking at medicine for my son. When that happened, nobody was in the market. I've been here 12 years. I support the development of 4 different products. I like challenges. So I guess when you are working for patients, you need a dream. And this is our new dream, you know. So at the end, it's a call for all of you guys. If you want to help, we'll be happy to partner to you. But we know it's going to be difficult. But, well, we have to try it.
So thank you very much again, Julian, for this presentation. And as you framed it, we need an idea, a vision, how to improve the system. And I think we are here in the spirit to work together on this approach. So thank you very much again. So we did have some important questions online, but I think with the next topics of this morning, we can address some of these questions. They have been very big in their consequences and for the discussion. So here I hand over now to Peter to follow up, and then
Thanks very much. And indeed, those questions that were in Slido, I think, probably fit better into the session that we're coming into now. It's a great pleasure to introduce my colleague, Georgia Gavrilidou, on my left, who is the head of the legal department at EMA. I'm going to step in for Kit Rose, who, for personal reasons, isn't with us today. Kit is the chair of the Methodology Working Party and would have been the perfect chair for this session, but I'll do my best to step in. So with that, I hand over to Georgia, who's going to introduce our first speakers.
Thank you very much, Peter. Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. I mean, already Julian and Carl have initiated to the next topic, because indeed we have the AI Act, we have this cross-relationship with cross-sector legislation. So I think it's a good time right now to talk a little bit about the not only regulating AI, which has been a statement of fact, but also where we are and what is coming next. And for the next 1 hour journey, it's a great pleasure because we have 3 esteemed colleagues and speakers who are going to take us through. We'll start with Dr. Tatiana Evans, who is virtually with us, and she's going to take us on giving us updates on AI Act. Then we'll follow with Arsharp on GMP Annex 22 and Tobias Fellinger as well on AI guidance development. I have to say the last 15 minutes, and potentially it will be good if you save all the questions for the very end, because we saved the last 15 minutes where this is where Peter is going to step in. And what we're expecting to have is an engaging, a stimulating discussion about what is about the current state of play and how we are moving forward on these particular topics. But I don't want to take any more time. I would like to introduce Dr. Tatiana Evans. She's a team leader on technical requirements, conformity assessment, and regulated products at the European Commission. It's very relevant because she's actually she's on the coordination and development of guidance, which is the cross-sectoral guidance between AI and cybersecurity, automotive legislation, and medical devices, of course, and machinery legislation. So quite pivotal. And of course, she's having an international presence. Since 2022, she holds the position of the Vice Chair of the OECD Working Party on Artificial Intelligence Governance, and she represents the European Commission on multiple international fora with G7, UN, Canada, and United States. And I'm double excited because she's a fellow lawyer as well as a background. But definitely she knows very well from previous experience about the intersection between technology and law. And without further ado, Dr. Evans, the floor is yours to take us.
Thank you very much for this invitation and warm welcome to this meeting. And actually, my presentation almost perfectly builds on the previous presentation by Julian, because exactly where he ended, with a bit a gloomy note that the whole legislation overlaps and it's difficult to navigate. So in my next 15 minutes, and if I would be allowed to share my slides, I would try to explain actually the logic of the Act and hopefully also provide a bit of ray of hope that the upcoming legislation is not there to preclude or kill innovation and make AI use more difficult, but actually make it more secure for the benefit of everyone, including patients and most vulnerable groups. So this is definitely our ambition. I don't know if I could now already share. Okay, just give me a second. I'll try to put slides on the screen. Somehow.
We have a set of the slides. Also, we can put them up if it's easier.
Yes, somehow I don't see.
Okay, don't worry. We'll put them up and just say next slide, Tatiana.
Okay, excellent. Okay. So I would wanted to take you in 8 steps through the logic, and what I wanted to actually start with is to take a bit a step back and ask why altogether, what is EU AI policy altogether, and what we want to achieve. If we go to the next slide, if there are 2 words, let's say, to remember about EU AI policy in general. So we want to build excellence. So we want to build an ecosystem where AI development is possible. And for this, we have a number of initiatives, which I will show in the next slide. But excellence is very important because Europe wants to lead and provide a space for experimentation and innovation also within the Europe, because, it's also very important geopolitical question. But also together with this, and basically hand in hand, like 2 legs running together, you also need trust. So not only excellence, meaning speed, being better, be faster, but also you need to build trust. So the whole EU policy on AI in different sectors, but generally this is the 2 keywords which we really want to achieve as a result of EU AI policy. And if we move to the next slide, I wanted to show the whole strategy, how we want to develop AI continent. And this is the vision. And if you see, there are a number of elements like Lego puzzles. So there are 5 main components which related to compute infrastructure, data, skills, and regulatory simplification or regulation is only a small part of it. Therefore, every presentation or every approach to when we discuss regulation also have to be seen in this context. And I will have no time to go through all these elements, but just to mention, for example, for computing infrastructure, which is very essential for development of AI systems, Europe is really leading in providing public funding for supercomputing. And there are a number of supercomputers which are actually world leading. In the top 10 of world leading computers are located in Europe and also supported by public funding. And to this, access to these computers is for small and medium enterprises and for researchers is free of charge. So it could be really used for public good. And I think it's very, very important contribution, which sometimes we forget and we only see Europe as a regulator. If we move to next slide, to the next slide, to next. Yes, we have recently adopted in October Apply AI strategy, which tries to set the operational principles of how this logic of excellence and trust with specific applications and specific actions will be implemented. And there are also sectoral flagships, and among the sectoral flagships, if we move to the next slide, is also healthcare and pharma. So Europe will, you see all the sectors in priority. So healthcare and pharma will be really in the forefront, because we also know very well that there are a lot of potentially very beneficial applications. And I think some presentations yesterday, but also presentation of Julian today is evidence of this. And if we move to the next slide, I cannot go through all the initiatives which Europe is funding for different projects, but I just wanted to particularly highlight in today's presentation is the initiative European Virtual Human Twins Initiative. There was also a big event in October which tried to present in more details the developments in this context. And if we move to the next slide, you see some key elements related to this initiative. Again, this is just to highlight that these initiatives exist and that Europe is really doing more than just regulation. And I really urge everyone to, if you're not familiar with this, to really look inside. And if you move to the next slide, it just particularly highlights how this AI and virtual human twins could help in drug development and what are they in the pipeline in this context. And like, again, just want to urge you to look further on these topics. But now if we screen out or zoom out from this larger picture and just keep in mind that this excellence and trust and regulation is only part of it, I now will dive in my next steps a little bit more in the AI Act. And if we move to the next slide, before I go into specifically what applies to AI, I just again wanted to spend 1 minute to explain logic and rationale of AI Act. And if we move to the next slide, in next slide, I try to present in key points what is AI Act all about. And you see here again the word trust, which is really key for uptake of any technologies, and particularly complex and advanced technologies that we are discussing here. So what are the basis of AI Act? It's very important in order to understand that the AI Act based on product legislation logic. So we treat the AI system as a product, but this is enhanced product legislation because it covers risks to health, safety, and fundamental rights for the reasons that Julian has very kindly explained, like bias, and there are many elements which go beyond narrow reading of health and safety, but also impact erode fundamental rights. But basically, we follow this product safety legislation, which is well known in the European Union, which means life cycle approach, where you look at the safety of the product already before market placement, during life cycle of also including when a product is in the market, and also in post-market monitoring. So this is life cycle approach is also very key to the AI Act. And of course, it's risk-based approach, and I will discuss it a bit later in a minute. So this is very important. We want to promote responsible innovation based on building trust of all end users of these devices, but we do it in a risk-based and life cycle approach. This is the fundamentals of AI Act. If we move to the next slide, there was also a question in Julian's presentation, and also one of the questions as a follow-up: what is exactly software? If software is a product, if medical device software is regulated. So I wanted to highlight that AI Act, and if we go to next slide, regulates AI systems. And the definition of AI system, if you see it now on the slide, is inspired by OECD definition, and definitely software, but not all software and not all automatic decision-making systems fall in the scope. But it's important that the subset of automated decision-making systems is understood as AI system. And here I wanted to also to stress that in some of the discussions, because of a lot of discussions and hype related to large language models, some only think that AI Act only regulates large language models, which is incorrect, because AI Act also defines AI systems, also including systems which are based on expert systems, so also systems which are trained based on machine learning, but not necessarily large language models or systems which continually learn while performing. So it's also would be so-called locked systems. So when you train with machine learning and then you place the system on the market, and then in use the system is not learning. So the spectrum of coverage of AI Act is broader than just most capable frontier large language models. If we move to the next slide, I mentioned a risk-based approach. What does it mean? So AI Act has different categories of risks. And here, when we speak about risks, also as Julian correctly pointed, we don't speak about technology per se, but we speak about use cases or application areas of the AI. So if AI is applied as a part of a medical device, for example, it's a high risk. So you see it's a high risk AI requirements category 2. But on the top of the pyramid, we have unacceptable uses of AI. So for example, in social scoring or in certain use cases of biometrics. So these are already prohibited in Europe from beginning of this year. So it's not allowed anymore in EU. So, but the main bulk of the requirements is about high risk, and I will explain in a second what does it mean. Then we have the next layer, which only requires disclosure obligations or transparency obligations for certain type of AI systems, and the rest of AI systems are not subject to any regulation. So risk-based approach here means that the requirements to the providers and deployers of the AI systems are commensurate to the level of risk that this specific application may use. And here it's also important to stress, for example, that one and same or similar AI technology or system could be used in different areas of application, and that would be subject to different regulatory requirements, just because, like I said, we don't focus on technology per se, but we focus on the use application. And now I will not have time, unfortunately, to go through each category. So my presentation will mostly focus on the requirements for high-risk AI systems. And if we go to the next slide, Yes, before I go to high-risk AI systems, just wanted to highlight that for large language models, so most powerful general-purpose AI models, there are a separate set of rules apply. And in order to make it operational, European Commission recently went through a process of code of practice and adopted code of practice on general-purpose AI models. And I will not discuss it here. Like I said, I will focus mostly on high risk, which is the next set of my slides. If we go to next. So if you are in category, to the next slide, if we go to the next category, like I mentioned, the main focus of AI Act on high-risk AI systems, but what does it mean high risk? And here we have two categories of high-risk AI systems. The first category is the if the AI system is embedded into the already regulated product or itself is a regulated product. An example, of course, here is a medical device regulation, in vitro, machinery. So if the AI system is integrated or part of the device itself, already regulated by EU legislation, and it's a safety component of that device, and it's subject to third-party conformity assessment, it falls into category of high risk. So here it's very important that we don't create a new category. We really rely on the categorization which is available of the risk, which is available in already existing sectoral legislation. So if under medical device regulation, the specific type of medical device is considered to be the device which should have to go through third-party conformity assessment, then it becomes also high-risk AI system. But we don't define what is medical device in AI Act. We don't say, we don't build new categories of risk. We fully rely on the categorization of risk provided in sectoral legislation. And there, for example, that's already a first element of coherence and consistency with AI Act is kind of top up to the existing product safety legislation. And the second category of the high-risk AI systems will be systems which are specifically listed under high risk in Annex 3 of AI Act. And it's covers 8 areas which are sensitive for health, safety, and fundamental rights, but which are not yet covered by product safety legislation. If we move to the next slide, so if you are in one of these categories, so for example, if you are AI enabled medical device, so AI medical software, so which requirements will apply? And if you look at the next slide, you see the set of requirements which also have been already mentioned in one or another way in many presentations, including this morning. And you see the kind of almost familiar names like risk management, quality management, human oversight. What is very important that under European Union product safety legislation, new legislative framework to which, for example, medical device and AI Act, medical device regulation and AI Act apply, there is so-called principle of complementarity, which means two things. That first, it helps you to avoid any unnecessary redundancies. And secondly, it means that in line with new legislative framework, the different requirements apply to different type of risks. So if we speak about AI Act focuses specifically on risks related to AI systems. So when you develop a risk management system under AI Act, you have to focus on specifically on AI system, not overall products. So if AI system is integrated into machinery or medical device for that matter, so overall safe performance of medical device, which will be based on risk management under medical device regulation, will be subject to medical device regulation requirements, while specifically performance of AI system will be subject to risk management under AI Act. But you could say, okay, for medical device software, it sometimes could be overlapping, and it's correct. And that's why we have specific provision in Article 8 and Article 9, which says that this risk management system for this type of products could be integrated, and you should build as much as possible into one risk management system, but you have to consider specific AI specific risks and also then overall safe performance of medical device in this one risk management system. Same applies for quality management system, for example. So what I want to say, while the titles of the requirements may seem very similar and look overlapping, they actually address different type of risks and which needs then to be integrated, and there are mechanisms in the Act actually explaining that you can integrate and combine it together. So I unfortunately don't have time, but I see there are a lot of questions about conformity assessment and CE marking and how it will work in practice. I'm happy to answer these questions because there are also mechanisms how to ensure that you get at the end CE marking and who are responsible both conformity assessment bodies, notifying authorities, and market surveillance. So this is again follows the product safety legislation, so similar to medical devices, and we have mechanism how to make it effective. If we move to next slide. Here I just wanted to highlight, but I don't have a lot of time, but just quickly run through with exactly 2 use cases where which are relevant for healthcare area. So first, as I said, if it's a joint application between medical devices and in vitro diagnostic regulation, and the second, which falls into category Annex 1 of AI Act, so means if it's a safety component and subject to third-party conformity assessment, both requirements of AI Act and requirements of medical device regulation and vitro will apply. But in this, we've taken into consideration the principle of complementarity. And the second category is, which you can find in Annex 3, which is called access to and enjoyment of essential private services and public services and benefits. And there we also have, for example, the emergency healthcare patient triage system or medical aid, as mentioned, as the high risk. If AI systems used in these situations, it also will fall into high risk AI, high risk category. For important to mention that for Annex 3, which I just mentioned, these use cases, the provider doesn't need to go to third-party conformity assessment, and it's based on internal assessment. Still, CE marking is needed, and same requirements apply, but there is no obligation to go to third-party. If we move to next slide, yeah. So again, what is very familiar for product safety legislation, in my slides, 2 previous slides before, I showed that we have a set of requirements. In order to operationalize the requirements, we will rely on harmonized standards. There are currently harmonized standards in preparation, including on risk management, on quality management, on transparency, on cybersecurity, and so on. So for each requirement, we have a forthcoming standard, and I just wanted to highlight that this is something in the pipeline, and first set of standards, horizontal standards, are upcoming. We move to the next slide, and I'll try to speed up. I see the next one. Just wanted to show you to the next slide. That in order for all of this to work, we will have both centralized and decentralized system of enforcement and governance structure. For AI systems, but we will have at the national level pre and post market supervision. So, like I mentioned, notifying authorities, notified bodies, and market surveillance authorities. But we also have at the EU level AI office, and AI office in particular will be responsible for supervision of general purpose AI models. And in order for all of this centralized and decentralized system work well, we also have a support mechanism, including AI board, which is similar to MDCG, but for AI, where it's a main interface with member states. Then we have also scientific panel and advisory forum as support mechanism to make the whole governance system work. If we move to the next slide. I wanted to very quickly to just say what we are doing and where we stand. And if we move to next slide and try to go quickly through this. So AI Act already entered into force, but the rules start to apply, let's say, in stages. So we already reached 2 first stages. So general provisions and prohibitions already apply. Also rules on general purpose and governance already started to apply from August this year. And the next milestone are the rules for high risk and transparency, which will start to apply with the current version of AI Act from 2026. So that's where we stand and where we are moving. So if we move to the next slide. Next slide. That is our implementation priorities. So we continue to work on setting up the governance structure and also building the capacity within the European Commission, within the office, also meaning building also our own capacity and expertise. Then we also work quite intensely on publication of various guidance and guidelines, code of practices, and also supporting standardization work. Then we also, as I mentioned and how I opened my presentation, we have a number of actions on the Digital Europe program, but also other funding mechanisms like Horizon Europe to support also development, uptake, and preparation for implementation of AI Act. And the most recently, we also launched just also in October, AI Act Service Desk. And if you go to next slide, I think that's my next slide, it's exactly this AI Service Desk, maybe then to next. It provides a mechanism, okay, sorry, maybe then even next, it provides a mechanism to answer, actually, it's a mechanism to ask exactly here. AI Act Service Desk is a mechanism to submit any queries related to AI Act implementation. So we wanted to provide the mechanism with stakeholders from individuals to smaller enterprises. We can reach out to AI office, and there are a set of lawyers who will try to navigate and help you to answer any kind of questions related to AI Act. So I really urge you to look at this tool and use this tool in preparation for implementation of AI Act. And if we could walk back to the previous slide, this is a number of deliverables on which we are working. So we working on the review of Annex 3, so with 8 use cases where I showed. We're also preparing a guidance on serious incident reporting, on guidelines and classification of high-risk AI systems, interplay with general data protection regulation, and as you see, many other things. So this all, which is coming either at the end of 25, 26. So we try really to support different stakeholders with necessary guidance to prepare for implementation. And if you move to the next, my last 2 slides, this is what we already published. And here I didn't include, but I just wanted to really highlight that we also in June this year, we published guidance on the interplay between AI Act and medical device regulation and in vitro. It was a joint work between Medical Device Coordination Group subgroup on new technologies and AI Board subgroup on medical devices. So this guidance is already available as of June, and hopefully it provides a first set of questions to understand exactly the questions that Julian was asking about how all of this on Earth will work together. So this way we try to clarify it. So this is already available. So at the end, I have 2 slides just quickly indicate that we have adopted also Digital Omnibus just this week on 19th of November, and AI Act is also part of this Digital Omnibus. So Digital Omnibus has 2 parts. One is related to GDPR, data, cybersecurity, digital identity, and separately AI Act. And in my next slide, I try to summarize the main elements which will be touched by this Digital Omnibus. Digital Omnibus, of course, is a proposal, so it will be now negotiated with the Parliament and the Council. But basically, what is key to Digital Omnibus, and maybe it's also answer to one of the questions in presentation by Julian, but Digital Omnibus doesn't intend to change any fundamentals of AI Act. So the main principles, including requirements and the reliance on standards and the all governance and supervision structure, are untouched. So it remains solid. So with this omnibus, we wanted to make very targeted amendments or clarifications on the interplay, but not going into major changes of what AI system or how the whole governance will work. So this is very fundamental. So we will only propose, if you saw, targeted amendments, and particularly keeping in mind the needs of small and medium enterprises and small mid-caps in order to make this regulatory pathway more smooth especially for this type of companies. And with this, I conclude, and looking forward to the discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. This has been a very thorough presentation and definitely addressed a lot of questions that we already had, but I'm pretty sure the audience would like to hear more from you at the Q&A section. I will move immediately to the next session, and which is going to focus on GMP Annex 22. And we have with us virtually as well Ib Alstrup, who is the team who is a leader in inspections in the Danish authority for the pharmaceutical industry's IT system across all GXP areas. with more than 30 years of experience in software design, test, quality, and assurance. He has been participating and he has been pivotal as well in providing contributions in a number of guidance. But since 2019, he has been chaired the draft group and being the EMA rapporteur for the Annex 11 on computerized system and the new GMP Annex 22. And he's the best fit to take us through this particular session. If that's okay with you, because we are a little bit running out of time and we would like as well the audience to ask questions to you and to the rest of the speakers. If we can stick to our timing, would be great. Thank you. Abe, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I was just trying to.
Okay.
Am I sharing
Yes, you are.
the slide now?
You are.
Yeah, fantastic. So thank you. Thanks for the introduction and for the invitation. Yeah, so I'll try and keep to time here. So, the thing is, how can I say that? Yeah, that I am, you can say, leading the group on Annex 11 and Annex 22. So the journey for myself started back in around 2018, looking at I heard somebody say yesterday, not at the conference, I think it was in another session at the University of YouTube. So I was following a number of people. I'm very happy to find out later that my daughter, who studies this topic is at the university, is actually being encouraged to follow some of the same people. So I started to actually how can I say, collect a number of questions to systems, questions I thought would be relevant to ask of machine learning systems used in critical applications. And you can see them on your left. We have also posted them on the website of the Danish Medicines Agency and got quite a number of positive comments to them. So in traditional software, we have a very well-defined, you can say, process, and there's a lot of documentation that we know how to deal with. Yeah. By the way, I forgot to say one thing. I should have mentioned that I cover all the GXP areas, but in this topic here, obviously, I'm diving into the GMP area. Yeah, so in traditional software, we have all these different documents, and we can look at all these requirements, specifications, and go back and see the testing and so forth and so forth. However, when we come to let me get this out of the way. When we look at the at machine learning models here, we have to realize that the functionality is not realized through programming. It is realized through training, and that there is not necessarily a one-to-one relationship between intentions to do something and functionality that is actually implemented. And therefore, I quickly realized that it would be a matter of looking more at the documentation used to provide evidence that systems are doing so and so. That is the test documentation. By the way, here, so we see that we can have training data sets, and we have also something we call validation data sets here. In a traditional machine learning lingo, this is more an optimization of a model than the actual final test. It became clear that focusing on the final test would be where the real evidence was to be found. So actually in 2022, coming up to 4 years now, we did the first real inspection of a major pharmaceutical company, having implemented a deep learning model here in identifying, you can say, defects in containers. And this was there was no human in the loop here. There was this was actually showing results that was on par with or better than any previous system they had. Okay, so now coming to the Annex 22, Annex 11 and Annex 22, I should say. And this is the drafting group you can see here, very freshly updated here, just the other day here, and with 3 new members coming in now, and also there has been. There are 3 new members that just came in the other day, and there are a few other members that have come in a couple of months ago, let's put it that way. There's also a couple of changes here. You can see that, but you can see that we have a very broad, you can say, participation from both PIGS countries and EU in EEA countries. So the Annex 11, of course, was the original document that was identified as it was identified that it needed an update, a revision, Annex 11 on computerized systems. And in doing so, we quickly identified the need for having a section on AI. And you can see there was a public consultation of a concept paper, and in that it was 33 different points were identified, and of those, point number 32 was actually on the area of AI here. And therefore, we started work and quickly found out that that this area was moving a lot faster than we had thought, and finally took a decision earlier this year to actually split it up so that the AI part has become its own document. It is simply to be able to make changes to that without having to change all of Annex 11. And Annex 22 here, I'll not go into detail with the whole document here. I'll only look at some key features, but you can see the whole document here. And that has been out for consultation in 3 months here. Prior to that, I should say it was 3 months in legal review at the European Commission. And so we got 1,350 approximately, that number of comments from 79 unique sources. Yes, so for Annex 22, what is the scope? And we have thought there are many applications we can think about in GMP, and should we cover all, or should we focus on those that really have a direct impact on patient safety, product quality, and data integrity? And we chose the latter here. So the document focuses on these areas, which you can say we have called it critical applications with direct impact, but you can also say they have a high impact with a low rate of detectability. So the models in scope are models used in manufacturing of medicinal products and active substances. It's models used in critical applications with direct impact. I already said that. It's machine learning models. It's simply to say that this is not a it is not necessarily written to cover anything beyond that, beyond machine learning. It's static models. So we have not yet written how to address models that adapt their performance during use by incorporating new data during use. It's also models that are deterministic. That means that they give the same output, providing the same input. And therefore, not in scope is dynamic models, which continuously and automatically learn and adapt performance. We do not have in scope models with a probabilistic output, which when given identical inputs, may not provide the same output. And therefore, we have not written the document to address generative AI and large language models. And remember, this document is written about a year ago. The last you can say words were changed in the document, and that means really that there will be things that we need to reconsider in the scope of this comments that we have received, 1,350 comments, and this is what we are about to do right now. So applications in scope, again, with direct input, used to predict or classify data, for which there is no effective barrier, and for which there is little or no direct human oversight. So this is obviously a generated picture, and what do I want to say here? So applications where there is an effective barrier, for instance, writing SOPs or other documents, which are intend to go through a thorough review and approval process. Well, we have not really directed the document or scoped the document to say how those activities should be covered. By the way, I think here that I made this young lady look very young because I actually told the model that this should be an intern. So here we have an intern. Actually, she just finished the first year in the pharmaceutical study, and now she's already writing some kind of draft for some SOP or whatever. But it is this experienced employee here on the left. It is his full responsibility to make sure that the result comes out right. And honestly, I think that we can use that analogy a lot when looking at large language models. But to be honest, we have not really covered that to the extent we may need to do in this in the review, in the scope of this the review. Thank you. So again, it is focusing on a description of the intended use of a model, including a thorough characterization of the data it is supposed to use as input and its limitations, including all common and rare variations. The data used to test a model should represent the above description. So this is very central in the document, that we have a description and that the data used to test the model represents this description. That the data used to test the model has not previously been used to train or optimize the same model. This is very important. So that we can know that individuals who have had access to test data are not involved in training and optimization. And that the result from test of a model meets predefined acceptance criteria. This is standard in GMP. Therefore, the document is not focusing on how a model was selected, how it was trained, or how it was optimized. However important these are, these things will not constitute sufficient proof of a model's performance in the case of an inspection. Also, it does not focus on an explanation or understanding of how AI models arrive at their result, explainable AI or ethical AI. That this is really not relevant in GMP. Thank you. Now I have summed up a few of the principles again. Go through this here. So the first is again the use of.
Ib, I'm going to have to intervene because you've got 7 more slides and we're already in the session about 20 minutes over. So rather than going through the content in the Q&A, which I think will be of most interest to a very specialist audience, maybe just draw out a few of the kind of key messages, maybe 1 message per slide. Otherwise, we're going to be taking huge amounts of time from subsequent speakers. Sorry to rush you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So. So the focus on intended use I've already talked about. So we have already talked about the focus on showing a system is a model is doing what is intended to do rather than explaining it. We have already talked about that a model is doing challenging intended use, and therefore test data should expand the outcome space of the intended use. And we have also already mentioned that the test data needs to have this independency. We cannot have that test users are you can say that users who have access to test data actually have the task to train the model. And what we have not mentioned is feature attribution. And this is the thing is here that we can see what a model is actually basing its decision on. I think that is it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ib, and thank you very much for your understanding and accommodating for a speedier presentation. I would like to welcome immediately Tobias Fellinger from the Austrian National Competent Authority. Tobias, he's physically in the room, and while he's preparing, he holds a master's degree in statistics. He's senior expert in the statistics and methodology group within the Competent Authority, and previously has been working in the Center for Medical Data Science at the Medical University of Vienna. And you will take us through on this journey of AI guidance development. So thank you very much, and thank you for accommodating a little bit the timelines here. Thank you.
Yes, hello. I'll try to make up for in a little bit of time. Does this work here? Or should do I tell you to do the next slide? Next slide, please. No? Yeah, thank you. So the guidance we currently have is in the USD AI Act we've heard of before. That's a guidance that, of course, spans across sectors and not just in the medical or medicines field. And in the medicines field, we have the AI reflection paper that EMA and the MWP developed. This mostly identifies issues and doesn't give very concrete guidance. And this will be the basis for more specific guidances. And is, of course, intersecting with other guidances, for example, in the statistical field. Next slide, please. So I'll quickly go over the fields that the reflection paper identified as potential use cases for AI in the medicines development and the whole medicines life cycle. The reflection paper uses a risk-based approach, so the different criteria will be applied with different stringency and depending on the risk the model poses. So first is drug discovery. This is kind of an anything goes area because how the drug is discovered is doesn't have that much regulatory impact. But of course, if the evidence from the early stages will be used later, then there will be higher standards. In the non-clinical development, one big hope is that AI can contribute to reduce, replace, and refine animal testing, where GLP practices apply. There's guidelines for that. And again, if this has broader implications, for example, for patient safety, for example, in first-in-human trials, then there will be this will be considered higher model risk and more criteria will be applied here. Next slide, please. In clinical trials, we have a good clinical practice. This mostly pertains to that the use of AI is documented properly and is stated whether AI and where AI is used. In clinical trials, there could be use of medical devices in vitro diagnostics. Medical devices are, of course, regulated as medical devices, but there could be possibly additional criteria. For example, if these diagnostics are used for patient selection, or if they influence the results of the study, for example, if the endpoint is measured using AI. This also goes to the next point. Data analysis and inference. Of course, AI could be used to analyze clinical trial data. This has to, the guidelines on statistical analysis have to be applied here. The methods should be pre-specified, documented in the SIP, and also here, the risk is different for different phases of drug development. For pivotal evidence, for example, the whole model pipeline should be frozen before database lock and so on. Very similar to the statistical analysis that we use so far. Next slide, please. So after the drug is on the market, we have precision medicine. There's also, if this is used for patient selection, it is also regulated as a medical device, and conformity assessment is done by other regulatory bodies. But it could be that we have a situation similar to companion diagnostics, where the AI is used to select patients to be treated with certain medicines, and there we need to come up with regulation on how this should be done. In product information, it's similar as in the GMP before. If there's close human overview and quality control measures in place, then this is probably not that high impact, but this is yet to be decided and described in more detail. Manufacturing and GMP, we've heard this before. There are GMP standards in an annex being developed or currently having been developed. in post-authorization, AI can support post-authorization safety and efficacy studies. For example, with methods like targeted maximum likelihood estimation and so on. If these studies are part of a condition for the marketing authorization, these have to be pre-specified again. There should be regulatory interactions before the study is started, and so on. And in pharmacovigilance, there's also big promise of AI that maybe signals could be detected earlier, as we heard in the talk yesterday. So next slide, please. The reflection paper outlines some technical aspects and that apply in different ways to the different applications of AI. I'm going to skip over this in interest of time. So next slide, please. So I'm going to shortly go over the guidance that's been developed or that is under development. We have the draft guideline ICH M15 on model-informed drug development. This is not specific to AI, but also pertains to mechanistic models and so on. But it has a section on model risk assessment and principles for model evaluation that are very relevant for AI. We have the draft GMP annex we heard before. We have, as we heard from Jörg yesterday, the good guiding principles for good AI practice that's been developed together with FDA and the upcoming glossary on terminology. And in the work plans of the PRAC and the MWP is guidance on pharmacovigilance, on AI in pharmacovigilance. And in the work plan of the MWP, there's guidance on clinical development. The timeline and form of this is yet to be fixed. So the reflection paper also states that regulatory interaction is highly encouraged. So on the next two slides, I'll give you a short list of platforms for that. Next slide, please. So to discuss general topics on need for guidance development, there's the portfolio and technology meetings that's open for pharmaceutical companies with large medicinal product portfolios, and the focus group on AI that's open to industry stakeholders, patient representatives, and so on. Next slide, please. And if And for more concrete products and AI applications, there's the Innovation Task Force meeting. This is for general discussion of novel technologies, and it's an open discussion with regulators without any formal recommendations. And for more specific products that are to be applied in medicines development, there's the scientific advice procedure, as for all other methods. And the qualification of novel methodologies if you want to qualify a method to be used in multiple development programs. Yeah, I think that's a short overview.
Thank you very much, Tobias. Thank you. We really appreciate that. Potentially now, Peter, can you work your magic a little bit for a speed questioning session?
I can do my best. So let's take the opportunity. We are running a little bit late, but let's take some of that time to just have some questions. I'm particularly aware that Tatiana is still online, and she sits in the nerve center of AI policy in Brussels. So it's a nice opportunity, if you do have questions, to throw them. Bastian, please, why don't you kick us off? And can we have short, we don't want speeches, we want short questions, and then we can get lots of feedback, okay?
I'm not sure if I can word this very shortly. Goes to Tatiana. So you had the timeline on, and then later you talked about the Digital Omnibus Act, which might delay these timelines. And you said it would not change substantial things. Now it seems that civil society is seeing this very differently, especially with GDPR. And also my seat neighbor pointed me out yesterday to an article of Financial Times, which also doesn't see this very positive. So do you have any thoughts on why the non-substantial changes are received so negatively? I wonder about that. In case you can answer, and alternatively, I have another question.
No, I could, of course, answer. I mean, so there are indeed some targeted amendments, yes, including on the, so GDPR is outside of AI Act Omnibus. So we split it to omnibuses. AI Act is separate, other questions are separate. So specifically for AI Act, we will not touch upon essential requirements. So the slide ahead with the requirements, we will remain the same, the system will remain the same. Of course, there are some modifications, and of course, there are different groups which react different to modifications. But like I also tried to mention, just to be short, that it's a proposal. As you know, the proposal will go through a legislative process, so it will be fine-tuned. But we had also, before proposing this omnibus, a public consultation, and also the questions or amendments suggested in the omnibus also come through results of the public consultation. So as the Commission has the right of legislative initiative, that's the result of this. And of course, we understand that we would need to build a difficult balance, also as we did for negotiations of the Act, and any small fine-tuning sometimes could also trigger important questions, which of course we need then to address and discuss through political process.
Thanks very much. Let's go to Stephen Gilbert, Technical University of Dresden.
So yeah, my point slightly bounces off Bastian's, and it's on the question of small changes versus fundamental changes. When OpenAI launched ChatGPT, Google called it code red. This space has fundamentally changed. We need to look at the world anew. There has been quite a lot of concern in the press that instead of calling a code red, we are making small changes. One of the biggest challenges to all regulators, even the fastest moving in the world, has been the completely new landscape. Bastian touched on it before. It's this question of software and AI particularly, and whether we can regulate as a product at all with product regulation. The short answer to that is the FDA has been very fast moving on this. They had sessions 2 weeks ago where they looked at particularly mental health and large language models. These are really important technologies. They are non-deterministic. They interact across data spaces. They interact across systems. They cannot be regulated as single products. We're starting to see international adaptation to real-time oversight, to AI approaches, agentic approaches in oversight. We're starting to see acknowledgement that we need to look at the systems and monitor in real time. You mentioned in your talk that systems are considered within the AI Act. Unfortunately, when they intersect with products in the MDR, you end up with stasis. You end up with a situation where the notified body for an individual company and a product can't cope with the systems they interact in. Do we not need to call it a bit of a code red?
There's a nice provocative one for you, Tatiana, for a Friday morning.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very happy about these questions. I mean, also by these provocative questions, we also learn, so we are also learning organization. And just quickly, I think AI Act is fit for the purpose because we, first of all, I mean, I did not have a lot of time to explain, but I think EU really has a competitive advantage, but we have one set of rules, which is in one code, so which would apply on all EU area, let's say, for all member states. So we have one set of rules. And while designing AI Act, we really try to make it future-proof, so not only for the definition, but also there are important elements. So we focus on AI systems, like I said, but there is a completely separate section on the general purpose AI models. So a lot of most powerful models, like you said, we are subject to this section which will be on models, which has now in summer this year, we have adopted code of practice, which brings in this possibility of continuous monitoring. And that's why, of course, again, for limited time, I couldn't develop that contrary to, for example, medical device regulation, some other pieces of legislation, we have combination of centralized versus decentralized system of supervision. So in particular for AI general purpose AI models and systems based on general purpose AI models, we have centralized supervision system, which is AI Office, which will oversee. And exactly for reasons which you have explained, because these technologies are so super fast moving, but we can implicate a lot of areas, but it was decided that this kind of needs a central oversight. So we will have the central AI Office specifically unit built for this, specifically for general purpose AI systems and models. So models and systems built on these models. So we work very closely, of course, with United States and other jurisdictions to see how it's doing. And of course, evaluation, metrics, supervision systems, it's all evolving sign. That's what another element, and then try to be very quickly, both for the normal kind of, let's say, AI systems and general purpose, most powerful AI models and system. One of the key concepts of AI Act is a state of the art. So we know that the state of the art, both in the terms of design and development of the systems, but also evaluation and supervising the systems, is almost a moving target. So, and the whole compliance framework of the Act is built on this very strong concept of the state of the art. That's why also standards, but also the guidelines, which kind of continuously codify and update the state of the art, become very, very important. It's difficult, yes. It is true, it's difficult. It's a moving target where we need to build also our capacities. That's why also both the technical, but also, let's say, human capacity needs to be built to enable this. And that brings me back to my previous comment that why the centralized and decentralized systems and combination of them is very important, because also we understand that some member states have limited capacities to, for example, supervise these most advanced systems. Therefore, we have a system of possible cooperation between AI office and the national authorities to kind of support each other to make this whole system work and also be able to actually supervise and assess, including the most advanced systems. And I would love to speak about this even longer, but I think I'll stop here.
Tatiana, listen, we could have a whole workshop on the application of the AI Act, but that's not, we're not going to have time for that today. But thank you for taking the question. There was somebody right at the back. Please introduce yourself.
Lucina Meynolen, University of Leiden and the Dutch Medicines Evaluation Board. I'll keep it short. Will there be any further nuancing of architecture specifically? We looked a lot at more flexible and more advanced models, but honestly, there's also a lot of very low, very shallow learning that might be more towards even statistical things like regularized regressions, K nearest neighbors. Will this be nuanced enough also within the AI Act? Thank you.
I think that's for you again, Tatiana. Nice. Two bullet point answer, please, Tatiana.
Yes, it's again very common question. At the moment, no. I mean, we say that all machine learning systems, and if it's even a simple machine learning systems, and we know that it could come from 50s, 60s, is still part of the AI system definition.
Thanks very much. We've got two more, and really super quick. Ramsey, please.
Yeah, my short question to Tatiana is about sandboxes. I believe it could be very beneficial for us as regulators to test and validate new methodology and tools before deployment. So my question, are there any guidance on how to set up sandboxes and, for example, how to define metrics, etc.? Thank you.
It's in a pipeline. We are adopting Implementing Act exactly on sandboxes because it is very strong innovation measure where and a lot of call by stakeholders indeed to advance on this. So we are proposing Implementing Act on this, yes, with details.
Thanks very much. Julian, last question going to the man that started the day.
Yeah, last question. I will try to be very fast and very specific. The question is for Tatiana and is also for sandboxes, because we already applied to the Spanish agency for the sandbox framework they have, but unfortunately they have a lot of applications. And for this particular tool that I presented today, do you see any opportunity to have another sandbox a part of the Spanish agency? Maybe, something that we can do with the EMA, for example, or with the Spanish medicine agency, or is a competency from the national AA agencies?
So indeed, it's more national competence because it's in AI says that each member state should set up at least one sandbox. It's not, it can be more, but at least one should be set up. And then it's of course up to each member state to decide what is the priority. So it's indeed, I would say it's more a national discussion. With the Omnibus, we propose also European sandbox, but it's mostly for the most advanced models and systems. So I think that's just to highlight. So, but sandbox is definitely something important instrument.
The patients are asking for sandboxes. Very good.
Yes.
Listen, there's just one question we're going to take online, and that's just to reinforce this point about early engagement with regulators. Maybe I can give it to Emmanuel Cormier, who's here on the panel. There was in the slide from Tobias, it mentioned the different elements. If there was one particularly on AI and uncertainty, regulatory navigation, what would you particularly signpost people to?
Sorry, I lost the button. Well, there was a couple opportunities there presenting. My initial reaction is let's make use of the easy to engage process we've in place with the innovation task force, for example. And there, of course, through that interaction, we could dispatch internally to maybe more appropriate for discussion. But innovation task force was mentioned, and I would say I highly recommend reach out.
So Google Innovation Task Force, European Medicines Agency, for informal discussions that help you navigate. I just wanted to point out, it's not a question, but Tatiana, you mentioned the digital omnibus from 2 days ago, and there's an explicit text in the so-called explanatory memorandum, which is in a legal text, if you like, so it's got high status for the Commission, a commitment to guidelines on the research exemption as it applies to pharmaceuticals. I know that's a topic of high interest and has come up in previous workshops that we've had with the pharmaceutical industry. So watch this space. Would that be coming from your office, Tatiana?
Yes. I mean, we always work together with DG Sante on anything related to medical, on pharma, and of course we will continue together on potential also with medicines agency. I mean, that's a very important topic, and indeed there are a lot of questions on this. That's why we put it explicitly in writing that it will be covered.
I think it was
also on clinical investigations as well, and real world testing, these related questions also to research.
So listen, just to say immediate feedback, I think it's going to be very well received. So let's keep talking on that topic. With that, thanks to all the speakers. Georgia, thank you for your co-chairmanship. We're only 15 minutes behind. We can recover, but it was a really interesting update on the different policy and regulatory aspects. And with that, maybe a round of applause for all the speakers. Carl, over to you.
Thanks, Peter. So from the view of regulators now to how can we enable innovation? And so it's a great pleasure for me to introduce as moderators, on the one hand, Konstantina Bumaki from the European Patients Forum. She's a medical doctor and a representative diabetes responsibilities, and Emmanuel Cormier. He is head of regulatory science here at the EMA. So over to you.
Carl, thank you very much. Carl, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. It's very nice to see how engaged of an audience we have here, and I can only encourage you to remain engaged in that session, of course. It is my pleasure to co-chair this session with Konstantina as a representation of patients under the European Patient Forum. So thank you very much, and Konstantina will walk us through the question on the second part of this session. So far, we've explored how AI is already being used in the context of medicine life cycle. We've heard from regulatory use cases to improve efficiency and consistency of processes. We've heard examples from industry, and this morning we had some very nice example, in particular from the patient perspective in the first presentation we've had. We've heard about the somewhat complex and evolving regulatory environment with some discussion on the AI Act. So now we want to turn to enabling responsible innovation. And our focus, of course, will change from the what to how can we ensure that what we're doing is done responsibly. Of course, at the agency and in the context of the European Medicine Regulatory Network, we see responsible innovation as a cornerstone of trust, and that is trust that we build with patients, that is trust we build with healthcare professionals, but more generally speaking with the health ecosystem, of course. So it means ethics, it means accountability and transparency should be a built-in element of AI application, and we need to explore that in such a way that we continue to foster that environment where innovation can thrive without compromising safety and quality of what is being developed. So in that session, we will have three presentation. The first one will be about ethics in AI. It's very much about how do we safeguard the fundamental values while we leverage the opportunities that are presented to us by advanced technology like artificial intelligence. The second one will look at some research priorities and an overview of a survey that we've conducted as a follow-up of last year's workshop, as a matter of fact. And the third one will be an implementation roadmap that you will be presented from the European Medicine Regulatory Network on how we're advancing AI adoption through a structured plan and a set of use cases. So again, I invite you to engage actively in this session, continue to challenge, continue to ask engaging questions, but generally speaking, continue to help us shape a framework where AI can deliver on the expectations and the promise of safety and ethical use for the benefit of public and animal health. So I will dive now directly to the sessions, and I would like to introduce the first speaker, which is Professor Blassim. Professor Blassim is a bioethicist at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. He's held other positions, notably at the French National Institute of Health and Medical Research in CERN, as well as Harvard University. His research focuses on ethical and policy issues in biomedical innovation and biotechnologies. He's a member of the Ethics Committee of ETH, Ethics Committee, as well as the Ethics Committee, of the International Society of Stem Cell Research. And as of 2025, he joined the HMA EMA NETA Network Steering Group. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to bring an ethics perspective to this interesting discussion. Just a little disclaimer, as many others in the room, I'm a member of the Network Data Steering Group, but I'm here in a personal capacity, also because I've joined the group only last summer. And while I have some recommendations about the ethics of AI in this particular space, I'm also afraid that I might have more questions than answers to some of those complex issues. So yeah, this is the plan for the day. I would like to start off by discussing some AI ethics aspects of using AI in clinical development. And then I would like to show some recent evolutions of AI ethics challenges through some use cases that apply across the board, from clinical development to regulatory decision making in the space of medicines. And then I will conclude with some suggestions or considerations that could keep things together, hopefully. So if we look at the projected market size for the use of AI in clinical trials, we see that there is going to be quite some steady growth of this particular industry, as we might want to call it. This is particularly interesting, and it's actually also good news because of the benefits that AI can bring to productivity in clinical development. We have already heard both yesterday and today about a multiplicity of use cases in clinical development. AI can automate document review, it can optimize protocol design, help with patient recruitment, and so on. This is good news not only for sponsors and potentially for regulators as well, but also from an ethical point of view. Faster and more efficient clinical trials reduce burden on research participants and hopefully bring drugs to the market and to patients, therefore much earlier. However, there are quite some relevant ethical uncertainties that we need to discuss. And if we look a little bit more in detail into what AI can do in clinical trials, maybe those ethical uncertainties can emerge. So these are use cases from McKinsey, but it's just convenient to use. If we look at even rather trivial ways in which AI can be used, for example, to help in site selection, we need to be reminding that selecting a site for a clinical trial means giving certain people more easy access to be enrolled in that trial. So this is likely to result in automated decisions by AI reflecting historical patterns of advantage of or disadvantage with respect to the chance of being enrolled in a clinical trial. So here you see that issues of fairness have to do with those historical patterns rather than data representativeness, as we usually hear. Also, if we think about automation that could be brought into the space of, for example, informed consent processes, well, this is self-explanatory. Informed consent is a cornerstone of clinical research ethics. And of course, if you automate that, you are touching upon a very contentious ethical issue. If we proceed highlighting some other use cases, matching trials and patients is also quite ethically relevant. It has been discussed earlier in terms of balancing risks and benefits of trial participation. We might have advantages in making supply and demand meet more efficiently, but this might result in overlooking the risks and maybe overstating the benefits of trial participation for some people. Selecting subpopulation, so inclusion and exclusion criteria, is also ethically contentious, meaning that there's been a lot of discussion in ethics about lack of sufficient degree of participation, for example, of women or pregnant women or certain age groups in clinical trials, and we don't want this to be replicated. Again, selecting endpoints is also contentious because it is something that, for example, patients' associations should have a say, especially in the case of certain diseases. If we move towards other use cases, we could basically run additional considerations about, for example, the use of AI models that interact directly with trial participants, and this is, of course, ethically relevant. Now, this is just to say that we know that AI can work quite well in all of these use cases. We just don't know whether it can work well from an ethical point of view. And this, I'm not casting doubts. I'm just saying that we're not testing for ethical quality of these automated decisions. So in this sense, I think that what I'm arguing for is introducing some element of slowness, as it was said before, into this process of using AI for clinical development. There are some types of clinical trials that apparently lend themselves more easily than others to be implemented through the use of AI, for example, decentralized designs. This is already quite a hot topic, and including from an ethical point of view, there are a number of considerations about safety, privacy, well-being, and scientific validity that have ethical importance in this space. But I don't want to talk about this in particular. I just want to point out that according to this report, in decentralized trials, already 25% of phase 2 and phase 3 trials are integrating AI. Now, I don't want to cast doubts on the reliability of this data. It's just that this is not what we say in our end. So we're doing research on decentralized trials, and basically we see that there is no reporting. So basically, I don't know how this 25% figure came out, probably through direct contact with sponsors. But if you look at clinical trial databases, the use of AI is not reported unless it is AI is part of the intervention itself. Okay, so in the space of decentralized trials, we don't see any documentation about the use of AI, and even less so in non-decentralized conventional trials. So this is to say that if the use of AI is not reported in clinical trial databases, and if the growth rate of the market size is the one that we saw at the beginning, basically AI is on its way to transform clinical development without specific ethical checkpoints. Which is not necessarily good news because we are basically importing AI ethics challenges into an already challenging space, that of clinical research ethics. Okay, so I would argue that AI ethics should be more regularly integrated into the life cycle of clinical development and regulatory decision making. In particular, to do that, we need specific principles and arguably also industry standards. So let's look at some recent developments in the space of AI ethics that can be interesting for this audience. So this is a table on the right, a pretty comprehensive catalog of AI ethics principles that apply across the board. I think it would be convenient to divide them up in 3 groups that not only reflect the relative frequency of the use of these principles in international AI ethics guidelines, but also are thematically clustered, because the first group, transparency, fairness, safety, liability, these have to do with the automation that AI introduces in a number of practices, whereas privacy, beneficence, autonomy, and freedom have to do mostly with the fact that AI needs data. Okay, the last group I won't have time to discuss. It has to do with the relationship between AI and society. It's an interesting topic. Happy to discuss later, but yeah, in the interest of time, I won't go in that direction. So when it comes to dealing with ethical challenges due to automation, a human-centered oversight is hailed as important. There are a number of frameworks about explainability, for example, that are based on human-centered oversight, including our own view of the matter. Yeah, if we look at the European context, in Europe, we actually have a right to explanation. And recently, the Court of Justice of the European Union has ruled that the right to explanation basically justifies that also possible trade secrets are, revealed in the attempt to fulfill this right. So we see that this is an expansion of the right to explanation, one that could be welcomed from an ethical point of view. We have seen similar understandings, for example, in the general purpose AI code of practice that has been evoked already when it comes to transparency of general purpose AI models that are the foundation of smaller models. This code of practice says that basically model architecture, parameters, deployment methods, intended use cases, and training methodology, among other things, could be and should be revealed. Now, I'm not sure that this is the kind of information that helps data subjects have their right to explanation fulfilled, but as a matter of fact, there are 2 approaches to explainability from an ethical point of view, and both have limitations. A human-centered approach, that is the one that I've illustrated so far, is limited by the fact that humans actually, however involved they are in the loop of providing explanations, have no way to actually oversee the rationale behind individual AI decisions. So these systems remain black boxes, so there is very little that the human in the loop can do in this case. Also, I would like to mention, because this emerged yesterday, that in-house models are not inherently more transparent than commercial ones. Okay, so especially in light of these recent rulings by the Court of Justice. There are, of course, also machine-centered approach to explainable AI. But these are also limited by the fact that humans tend to have a confirmation bias when it comes to an explanation that arrives from AI itself. And also these recent chain of thought models that provide some insights into the reasoning behind AI decisions are rather misleading, because it's another machine that is generating those reasonings. So we don't really know if it is if it is reliable or not. Okay, so in the space of algorithmic fairness, there is probably also some important functions of human-centered oversight that cannot be easily automated. We have this is a framework that we have published earlier this year about mitigating bias in machine learning algorithms. I don't want to go into the details of the framework itself. I just want to point out that for some relevant trade-offs, you need a human decision maker. Okay, so these are ethically relevant trade-offs, for example, between available data and ideally inclusive data. Sometimes we just don't have inclusive enough data, so the alternative is between not training an algorithm at all, so not going for development, or training an algorithm that we know might have some biases. Also, mitigating biases most of the time implies reducing performance of algorithms. So this is, again, another ethically relevant trade-off. And then some levels of bias might be acceptable because they might be statistically significant, but overall small, for example. Okay, so here I think that there is a lot of room for human oversight. I would like to conclude with some considerations about the evolution of data protection, especially in Europe, as it relates to rights like privacy, for example. Again, the European Court of Justice has clarified that pseudonymized data can actually be treated as if they were anonymized in case the re-identification of this data is particularly cumbersome for data users, which makes sense if you think about it. It makes sense because it doesn't come at an additional cost for data subjects, and it can actually streamline some operations along the way. Also, in the recent digital omnibus that has been already evoked this morning, there seemed to be room for, let's say, easier processing of personal data for uses like model testing. So if you need personal data to mitigate bias, or if you need personal data to improve the accuracy or the safety of an AI model, you can process personal data without much further authorization. That's more or less the rationale, which is interesting. It's a streamlining provision, but also raises the question as to whether the conditions set forth in informed consent still constitute the scope of reasonable expectations on the possible uses of data. So this means that informed consent is probably evolving. We probably should start talking about AI-ready informed consent. The basis, the ethical basis of informed consent in the AI era remains the same. The terms under which personal data have been collected cannot be violated. This has to do with respect for persons and also with trust. However, at least for already consented data that now we are using to train models, for example, we need to at least communicate to that data subjects that those uses are now possible and give them the option to opt in and opt out. This is like when genome sequencing was introduced and it was used on previously collected samples. I mean, people went back to the original data, or in that case, sample donors, to ask for permission to do genome sequencing. But for newly consented data, we need to specify that access conditions to data now include training and validation of models, and that we need to clarify that once your personal data is used to train a model, it's virtually impossible to remove it from the model itself and from its operation, so to say. Also, look into the future, we need to ask ourselves whether automation is legitimate or ethically justifiable in the case of informed consent as a process itself. Okay, so just to wrap up my, let's say, final considerations, from an ethics point of view, I would argue that rights related to automation are slowly but being implemented. Explainability remains challenging, but also in the space of AI fairness, we need to rely on human-centered approaches. rights related to data privacy instead seem to undergo some possible reconfigurations that we need to monitor closely. From a practical point of view, I would say that AI used in clinical trials should be documented, both in databases and in informed consent, that AI ethics should be integrated in all the life cycle of clinical development and regulatory decision making. And finally, that ethics oversight checkpoints are needed. They're not in place yet. We're not testing AI for ethics yet. Looking ahead, yes, I think that we need to understand under which conditions ethics review itself can be automated through AI, and this is a question that at the moment I don't think I have an answer to. So I would like to just thank Evan for Mullen from Sidley Austin, that has been a long time collaborator with me, my research group and my funders, and thank you all for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Blasime. Very, very insightful presentation on the importance and relevance of ethical AI in the context of clinical research, which is somewhat contrast a little bit from a message we heard earlier in the context of GMP, where AI was mentioned as maybe less relevant. Ethical AI, sorry, was mentioned as maybe less relevant. But thank you very much again. Very, very insightful. Let's move on to the next presentation here on research priority updates and an overview and a review of the recent survey we've conducted. And that will be my pleasure to introduce Marie Auré. Marie Auré has a PhD in molecular medicine and over 15 years of experience in data science and analytics, which she acquired in various roles in academia, pharmaceutical industry, HTA, and regulatory agencies. I think the full spectrum, if I put it like this. She works as a clinical, as a data scientist, within the data analytics and methods task force at the agency, and she's working on facilitating the use of clinical studies data to support regulatory decision making. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Turn this on. Hello. So there we go. So yes, I'm here today to present some preliminary results from the AI research priority service that was sent out earlier this autumn. And I will try to be quick if I can change slides. There we go. Too fast. There you go. So the context for this service. So last year during this AI workshop, there was, I believe, a panel discussion where AI research priorities were discussed, and there were a lot of diverse needs that was discussed there with different type of granularity. So it was decided that we should put out the targeted survey to get a broader input from stakeholders on these questions. So the survey was sent out earlier this autumn. And the aim is to then gather your input from a broader stakeholder group to influence regulatory science research. So where we should put the research efforts when it comes to AI science priorities. And to accelerate learning on key priorities and also to reduce the uncertainty around AI in medicine. So just short, this is the process. So there was a drafting group designing the survey. It was sent out to a big group of stakeholders from regulators, patients, industry, CROs, healthcare professionals. Patients I already said, yeah. And then we've been working on interpreting the results from this survey, and now we're here to present briefly to you. And then we will do some further refinement of the analysis and ultimately where we have identified research priorities to put forward and publish. So the service structure is such, so there were 7 broad domains identified. Not going to read them, but for each domain that you can see here on your left-hand side, there was also, we developed 4 different types of research questions, and the respondents to the surveys were asked to rank these research questions for each domain in the order of their own opinion. So which one they rank first, second, third, and fourth, and so on. So 4 questions per domain. And now to a few results from the survey. So we had 273 respondents. We think that is a pretty good number for such a survey. And if you can see here, you see the proportions of stakeholders as responders. So the biggest proportion was from national and competent authorities, followed by the industry, and also SMEs, of course, belong to the industry. And then we had, it's very hard to see here. You see better the purple, sorry, I can't see, it's tiny here on the screen. We got some lower responses from the researchers and the EU agencies. And when we look to AI experience, we can see that most respondents said that they have basic experience, but use AI professionally. But we also see quite a big group with more advanced AI experience, and very few that didn't have any experience. That was the wrong. So the respondents were also asked to to put forward 3 of these 7 identified domains. If a resource were constrained, which ones would you want to put forward as the most important one? And based on these results, we get an overall prioritization of domain, and we can see quite clear here that accuracy and reliability was by far the most prioritized domain, followed by data governance and data governance, confidentiality, and consent. And I will present just a brief overview of the results from these different domains very fast, so I don't take too much time here. I will do it in the order of this overall prioritization. So when we come to accuracy and reliability of AI tools, we can see that first, I just want to go through the plot. So on the plot on the left-hand side, you can see the questions on the y-axis, slightly abbreviated for visual purposes. And then you have the horizontal bars. And if most respondents said that prioritize this question the highest, you have green area, and then blue was the second ranked, and orange is the third, and red is the fourth. So you can see here that most respondents prioritize the question concerning how can accuracy and reliability be ensured and limits be detected in this. And this was the most important and overall prioritized domain. And if we look at the plot to the right, we want to see how did the different stakeholder groups rank the different questions to see if we saw any changes. But in this domain, we can see that it was most stakeholders ranked the same question the highest. And if we come to data governance, confidentiality, and consent, we see a bit of a different picture. So the many questions were ranked pretty similar. And if we look to the stakeholder plot, you can see that there was also a difference in the stakeholder ranking of these questions. But models of informed consent was the most prioritized one. And if we go to the next one, the third most overall prioritized one, ethics of fairness and bias preventions. And here you can see it was also kind of a close call between many questions. While one question was favored and slightly, and that is what met the best spot to reduce bias. But if you look at the average ranking among stakeholders, this sort of converges towards the median, which intends that it's hard to rank these questions for the stakeholders. The fourth most ranked question was regulation. The domain was regulation and oversight. And here we can see that there was also a close call among the ranking if you look to the average question ranking. And if you look to the stakeholder, we can see maybe a bit of a pattern that the regulators and academia tend to rank the question concerning gaps in guidance for AI use related to benefit, risk, and evidence generation, while and you can see the opposite for the blue line. Sorry, it's really hard for me to read the question. I barely see it. And when it comes to research integrity and intellectual property, we do see a similar pattern with a big mix of rankings across stakeholder groups.
Marie, do you want to finish the presentation from your seat? Because then you'll have a bigger screen. Because it's clearly very difficult. And for the sake of the 60 seconds for you to walk back to your seat, it'll be easier. Yes?
Thank you, Peter. Very kind. I think, well, I sort of raced through them, but the last ranked domain, the impact on jobs and skills, had, oddly enough, the most highly ranked question in there. It's a question concerning what set of skills are important for regulatory medicine development as AI evolves, as we see. However, I had a very nice, I think it was a quote here that I thought I should put forward. It was possibility to have open-ended questions or comments to this. And there was a patient voice saying, this domain is less critical compared to others, as the primary focus in AI for medicine should be in ensuring safety, accuracy, and ethical use, rather than workforce transition. So that could be a reason why this was ranked the last in the overall ranking. Next, please. Well, so what we do next, you saw that there was a lot of variation among the stakeholders to many of these questions within the research domain. So we need to further refine the analysis and maybe look, we have a few more groups to stratify on, so see if we can tease out some more questions. And then when we identified AI research priorities based on this survey, we will go to the network data steering group for review and endorsement. And these results will be published in Q1 of next year is the plan. So yeah, thank you very much. And I would like to thank also, maybe many of you have been participating in this survey, so thank you for your input. And I would also like to send a huge thanks to Amanda and Luis that has been instrumental for the work of this survey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mary. And indeed, your screen on the stand is very, very small. So yeah, good job. So we were adaptable, and you managed to finish your presentation. It's another example, in my opinion, on the importance of engagement with the various stakeholders. Here, we were able to tease out some very, very specific on some research priorities, and let's move forward with actions now, I guess, on these priorities. The next presentation will be by Joachim Beranger-Jornet. Joachim is a mathematician. He's currently one of the AI implementation leads, and support the digital strategy of the agency. He's also the chair of the EU AN working group on AI, and he will give us an overview of the roadmap that we have worked along with the network on AI. So please.
Thank you, Emmanuel, and good morning, everyone. In this Friday morning, happy Friday. Who works with me always, I like to say that every day it should be a happy day for us to be here and to work for this network. And I would like to apologize because yesterday I was not here. I had some personal issues with some of my kids. But you had a very interesting conversation already with AI use cases. And it was a pity that I was not here to input what I'm going to present here. But yeah, luckily Peter paused that conversation and hold it for today, because that's the goal of today. I'm not here. I'm here to talk about how EMRN is advancing on AI implementation and how we are doing this all together with the different NCAs and the network. As Manuel said, my name is Kim. Currently, my hat here at EMA is the AI implementation lead, working in the Digital Business Transformation Task Force, but I'm doing this work with all colleagues at EMA, so all from the different divisions, and also task forces from IT, TDA, and also the business, because we need to remind ourselves that this journey is not about IT delivery, it's about using these IT solutions in the business processes, and they should be in the center. And I will remind this during my presentation. In addition to that, I'm chair of the UAN, the European Agency Network. This is the 47 decentralized agencies from the Commission and joint undertakings. And there, what we also want to aim is to collaborate on implementing AI in different maturity elements, that some of them we have been discussing here: data, technology, processes, ethics, but also trying to do things together. And this should be our message, trying to do things together. And that's why it's very important, our work plan, what we already are doing here. And because at the end of the day, here we are all together for the patients and for Europe, and we need to work in a collaborative mode. That's why we created this work plan, and where we see in the work plan, the main goal is to how all together in the network we can collaborate implementing AI. But here is not about the work plan, it's about the AI use cases roadmap. That is one of the streams that you can see here in the work plan. And one of the interesting things that we identified last year in this workshop was that some of the NCAs, they were not aware of solutions that were ready enabled in the network. Some they did know, but it was raised that element. So what we wanted, and one of the objectives of this roadmap, is to build the solutions and the implementation of the use cases together, and to make this communicated properly across the different NCAs, but also here at EMA. So the goal of the roadmap is this: we should put together the current solutions that are available. Some were presented yesterday, so from colleagues from MPA. Also at EMA, as you know, we have been delivering some of our solutions, Scientific Explorer being widely used in the network, but also we have been experimenting and testing the technology, and we are already delivering some of these solutions for the network. In Q1 and Q2 next year, there will be some already deliverables and access to new solutions such as expansion of Scientific Explorer, but also some agents or chatbots to access different knowledge bases. But what's next? So since we have been doing things already in the last years, we wanted to know what was next. What is our priority? Where we need to put our focus? And for that, we engaged with the network, with all the NCAs in a series of sessions and discussions to understand where we need to put our priority. What should be our effort, and what would be the best place to start the next step. And I would like to say that we are aligned here at the EMA at network level. So the priorities and the use cases, we identify the same. So that's a good thing. From one side, when we talk about AI, we see that we can go and say we can do everything with AI. And these are some opinions. Some opinions say we cannot do anything. But in the middle, there is a path that we can call our golden path. That is a path that I think analyzing and assessing properly the needs, the requirements, and what is our objective is where we need to do. And for that, we have been developing some sessions to gather all this information. We are talking about use cases, we are talking about different business areas, but at the end of the day, we talk about the same. We using different words. This is what we have been collecting and understanding during the conversations with the different sessions. So I want to show you what we have done. Today is not about the proposal, the roadmap. You will not see it because it still needs to be approved by NDHE and will be in the next weeks. But there will be follow-up communications on that. But I want to show you what we have done to gather and to assess this proposal. Basically, first, we had to understand what were the needs. And for that, we organized workshops with the NCAs, and some of you here participated in these workshops. And the first workshop was with the end users, with assessors, what they want to use, for what they want to use AI. And there was a challenging workshop, but I think with success. We collected all the ideas. We was more than 120 participants online, 16 breakout rooms, and we collected more than 100 ideas. These 100 ideas were summarized in 60 use cases, because as I said, we say the same in different words. We conducted a survey after the workshop to see what is a business priority, what is these use cases or first use cases where we need to put our effort and emphasis. And in the same time, internally at EMA, we were discussing how, in terms of IT delivery, which solutions could be implemented or not. Following this, we also had a second workshop with the IT experts in the different NCAs to discuss of the solutions that are already available in the network that can provide a solution for the use case, and where are the next steps and where to put our priority. And the result of this, it's 3 main areas of business areas where we want to emphasize and put our efforts. We have clinical trials, marketing authorization, procedure, and pharmacovigilance. Nothing new. We know that this is it, but we can confirm that there is a need and the necessity of that. The numbers that I just said, it's not about saying numbers. It shows the engagement of the network to be part of this journey. It shows the engagement of the different assessors and the different colleagues that would like to be there. So gathering all this information and confirming it, it's already a success in this journey. And then in terms of next step and defining the way forward, we identified that this is a very important element, this collaboration between IT and the business. If you have seen the previous presentation in the research priorities, there is none about IT, if you have identified that. All it's about people. All is about how we are going to use the AI. So here is where we need to put most of our stress, and our proposal includes this. Includes that assessors and colleagues should be in the middle, should be in the center of this delivery. Because it's about building trust and adoption. And at the end of the day, a tool is a tool. But we don't know how to use it, will be a tool next year. And for this, we are identifying the necessary tools that are needed to deliver this, and we are governed and trying to organize the work in different streams. On one hand, the delivery of the solution, but trying to simplify it. One of the key messages that we receive and feedback is that we want quick wins. We want things simple. We don't want to overcomplicate the reality. And we need to start small. This starting small will show potential, will build trust, and will help us in the adoption. As I said, this proposal is almost ready. Will be presented at NDHE in the following weeks for approval, and there will be further communication. But I can anticipate you a bit the overall an overview as my final slide, and also link it to the presentation yesterday. This is a diagram of the result, just a representation. You cannot see the dots, but I can explain them. That is about the 61 use cases that I said. They were visualized and put it in this diagram with these 3 main capabilities that we identify. Knowledge mining and retrieval of information, draft and summarization of information, and validation and quality assurance. All of them were discussed yesterday already. As you have seen, we already are doing some proof of concepts in terms of validating and making the quality assurance of documents in drafting, but also we already have tools available on retrieving knowledge and accessing the information. Here, the main use case is about accessing the information that we have in an efficient way and also rapidly. And depending on the solution that we enable, we can use those solutions to enable further other use cases. Then, to close this, you can see that there are many use cases, and we cannot start with everything. We need to focus our attention, and there will be a few use cases that will be prioritized and presented. And those are about enabling this retrieval space on dedicated knowledge bases, drafting documents, validating, and also making the quality assurance of the documents that we receive, but also that we produce. And to close this, I would like to make a remark. I've been here in the last 2-3 years in these workshops, at EMA 7 years already, but during these workshops, and I see how the maturity level of the conversations and the work that you have been doing is increasing. I do believe that in the last 2-3 years was the time to experiment, understand the technology, and make this and create the foundation for what is coming. And I think that is where we are. We have built the foundation already. We know how the technology works. Now we need to do the next level. And the next part of this journey, it's about building bridges between IT and the business. And last remark that also it's in the EMA branding, it's that the future is now, and I think next year will be an excellent year to celebrate many successful stories in terms of AI. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kim. Always an optimist. That's very nice. And and as you said, I think it's about building trust and adoption. This work plan, this roadmap for AI implementation is very much about this. It's being transparent about what we're doing to also generate the engagement and the progress moving forward. So I'll hand it over to my co-chair here, who will moderate the question and answer. Konstantina, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much to all the three speakers. And it's really important to see how ethics, research priorities, and real implementation come together. As patients, we sometimes think that AI can fix everything overnight. But what you showed today is that responsible ethical innovation take careful steps and transparency and strong governance. So I'd love to open the floor now. And let's go ahead.
I can only agree to all the three presentations. I really think we need to consider really ethical aspects, but also here explainability methods. What I actually don't understand, also from an industry perspective, is why everything is so in line, but the Annex 22 is totally contradicting to that. This is maybe not for this audience here, but I just want to raise this comment here because I think it's very I don't understand it why, for example, explainability methods are not included in the Annex 22, or even some technologies are somehow outputted, but we have already guidances here in the world we can use for that. So just a comment from my side. Thank you.
Maybe Ip is still online, could comment on that briefly. From the perspective of Annex 22, of course, as I indicated, Annex 22 focused on GMP, and here in that discussion, we've looked at more maybe the clinical research perspective, which is of course different, and the element of ethical AI is maybe more prevalent. But maybe Ip, you have a comment, and maybe a professor, you want a comment as well. You want to start? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very on-point comment because, as a matter of fact, there is huge literature on different explainability frameworks. There is a huge literature also on different bias mitigation frameworks. None of them, to my knowledge, has made it to become an industry standard. So I would say that realistically, it's more likely that the industry itself will be able to standardize some of those mechanisms and frameworks than expecting this to come from the regulatory space. Also because especially in Europe, the regulatory space is already very complex. And I don't think that the industry can afford to wait for standards to emerge from outside, also from a reputational point of view. And I think that there is a lot that the industry can actually do to promote some form of harmonization into explainability methods and fairness bias mitigation methods as well.
As Abe perhaps is not, I'm not sure whether he's still with us, but I can comment from the MWP side. And I think we still do have some internal alignment to do within the network and on an EMA level on how we view these modeling techniques and at what level we need to understand them in order to give the regulatory guidance and also inspect and ensure that it's up to standards. I do believe explainability and interpretability will be very important in relation to understanding what the test accuracy or F1 score actually does mean and how robust it is will be over time. So I hope we'll be able to find alignment and come up with more harmonized wording across all GXP fields and hopefully also across the Atlantic, but we are not there yet. So I agree with your observation. Thank you.
Any other questions?
My question was regarding the patient recruitment that you mentioned, because AI can help this, which is we are all struggling, and how can guarantee like a good geographically and also other factor representations. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the point is that you need to develop models in a way that allow you to test how they do with respect to certain desirable characteristics, like, for example, geographic fairness over a population. No? So the point is for technical people to introduce those types of constraints into the automation of, for example, patient recruitment. And I mean, I don't want to be generic, but the point is that normally people from, I mean, a technical background might not just be aware of these being priorities to be, or being elements to be prioritized in the way their model deploy their information. So as a matter of fact, it's important to raise awareness that the business of, for example, bias mitigation is an interdisciplinary business. And the computer scientists I have interacted with are absolutely very responsive, and I have never found resistance. Actually, the work that I've been doing in bias mitigation has been done hand in hand with computer scientists. So there is the capacity and there is the sensitivity to go in that direction. There is also increasing levels of awareness, but the point is that it comes as a decision what kind of constraints we need to introduce.
Thank you. Regarding this question, and just for the interest of the audience, there is an European project called READY, and the goal of READY is to be able to solve this problem. We are part of the consortium. Foundation 29 is part of the consortium. We have multiple work packages, and one of the packages is oriented to this problem. So if any people in the audience is interested in know about READY, they can contact us, and we will be happy to put you in touch with the relevant people in the consortium. This is a consortium funded by the European Commission and the industry, EMA.
Any other questions? Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, my question also goes to Alessandro. So first, I agree that we don't hear much of these ancillary systems which are used in clinical trials, and it is a problem. Luckily, so far, we've only seen one system which we thought was borderline ethical. So this seems to be going fine. But now my question, so you talked about the informed consent and what I struggle with. So I'm also a patient, and maybe you give your informed consent for your data to be used in further, including in the AI system. Now, one of the industry partners now uses the data to build a model, which is then used in a clinical trial. Now I change my mind and I revoke my informed consent for my data to be used. What is now the way forward? Do you have any thoughts on the way forward? Because it is unethical to use my data further. On the other side, it would be unethical to change something in the trial because performance will change and it will invalidate the results. Any thoughts on? It's a tough question, but would want to hear your thoughts.
Thank you very much. This is absolutely crucial. I mean, the issue of how withdrawal of consent has an impact on research, also on the quality of research and the robustness of research, has been discussed for a long time before AI came into the picture. So it's not a new problem. With AI, it's a more challenging problem for two reasons. First, because for the time being, we don't have very specific consent, very specific characteristics in consent forms that relate to AI specific aspects. So the AI part of data use is very seldom part of the informed consent process at all. And so this reduces the scope of meaningful authorization of these uses. On the other end, as I was saying earlier, for certain models, once you have trained the model, your contribution, your personal data contribution to that model is there to stay. Even if you say, don't use my data anymore, you cannot remove what the model has learned from the pool of data that included your data. So again, these are not new things, and there is no silver bullet here. The point is that it needs to become more routinized, that informed consent includes elements of AI, AI use of personal data. And the issue of withdrawing consent, I really want to highlight that. Withdrawing consent is part and parcel of what informed consent process tries to make feasible. So there is no authorization that is ethically regarded as valid unless you can withdraw this authorization. So it's important to think ahead of what withdrawal means in the case of newly consented data that are used to train AI models. It's a technical and ethical issue at the very same time.
Thank you so much, Professor. We have one question from the audience and from the online participants, and it is for Joaquim. What were the criteria to prioritize the 6-to-1 AI use cases, and can you provide tangible examples of parameters?
Yes, so at the end, when we prioritize the use cases, we sent a survey, as I was saying, and we sent a survey focused on the business impact of the use cases, and we categorized them between critical, high, medium, and low impact of these use cases. And this categorization was based on whether that use case would be relevant for the specific business area, and it would have any improvement in the way of using the AI. Basically, if that focusing on enabling the AI would be useful or not. And this was a bit the criteria for the business impact. And on the other hand, for the technology, basically, we were highlighting the different elements that it was high feasible, medium, or low feasible. And that would link to some principles in terms of IT implementation. Basically, whether we are ready to go there. There is a very good landscape fit of that use case in our current IT landscape, being from the network or being at EMA in terms of the technology that we have enabled. If there is a limited number of resources or scope that is needed to enable that use case, it's something that can be done in weeks, so we need a month. And then also if it can be reusable, whether we do in a one use case can be impacted or being reused in other areas. So this was a bit in terms of the criteria that we were using.
Thank you. And we're I think we're over time, but you can find the speakers during the break that we are going to have now because everyone is super tired. And we want to thank with my super expert co-moderator to thank all the speakers and all of you that you were fully observing and hearing. And now I'm passing by to Peter.
So maybe just a round of applause for the speakers. And thanks to Konstantina and to Emmanuel for co-moderating the session. Now we have a break. We've made you work hard, 2 3/4 hours without a coffee break. We're going to reconvene at 12, and then we're going to have a power hour on planning. Okay, so I want you to come back caffeined up, ready to express your views on what the priorities for work planning might be from the regulatory network in the area of AI over the next couple of years. So back at 12 o'clock, please. Thank you. So welcome back. To those of you who are online, I hope you've had a couple of minutes to have a break. The last colleagues are just taking their seats in the room here at the EMA building in Amsterdam. And we are entering the final stretch of our AI workshop. And this is called From Plan to Practice, Executing the Data and AI Work Plan. And what we're going to do is we are going to have a presentation which will take about 10 minutes from Luis Pinheiro, who is the rapporteur or the coordinator, if you like, for the AI work plan at the European Medicines Agency and the European Regulatory Network. And then we have panelists representing different stakeholder groups who are going to give some of their thoughts, priorities for work planning in the next year or two. And we're going to then get everybody's feedback via Slido. And the Slido has been organised because we already know what the headlines are from our panelists. We've put those headlines into the Slido, and you can upvote them, downvote them, sideways vote them, tell us what you want, and then we'll have an open discussion. Now, this is not a decision-making forum, it's advisory, it's a listening forum. So just because something gets a lot of upvoting today doesn't definitely mean that Carl Broich is going to deliver it next year. But it is extremely influential, if you like. So please do try and get your voice heard. And with that, I already introduced him. He's a senior pharmacoepidemiology specialist and AI expert within the European Medicines Agency. Luis Pinheiro, please.
Thank you very much, Peter. Colleagues, good morning or good afternoon. We're starting in the afternoon. It's a privilege to be here to present on our activities in the realm of the AI workstream of the Data and AI Work Plan. And I'll start with acknowledging that Georg did a great analogy yesterday using ballrooms and dancing, and Pelle did a follow-up analogy with weather and daylight. And as a Portuguese myself, our analogies are food and eating. So if in Portugal you do anything good or you are attractive, you are as good as sweet corn. So using that analogy, I invite you to see the work plan as a recipe. And some of those ingredients have been already presented by colleagues today. I will recap them, but you will see the full overview of that recipe. And after that, we will continue and discuss whether this continues to be the appropriate recipe or if we need to add more sweet corn to it. So the very first thing I'd like to do is explain what work plan we are talking about, because this year is the first year that the work plan is under the Network Data Steering Group. Now, Carl, in his opening statement yesterday, already mentioned this, that we have transitioned from the Big Data Steering Group to the Network Data Steering Group. The Network Data Steering Group has a broader mandate, a broader scope, but essentially has the ownership of the previous work plan that went from 2023 to 2028. So the work plan that is the correct work plan, the work plan that we are discussing, is the work plan on the right-hand side of your screen, the Data and AI in Medicines regulation. Now, that work plan has 6 work streams. I will not go into too much detail about all the work streams, but I did want to flag to you that each work stream has swim lanes or pillars. And these swim lanes or pillars essentially are a coherent set of deliverables and tasks. And the swim lanes within each of these work streams and the work streams within the work plan are interconnected and build on each other. So you will see on the right, top right of your screen, the artificial intelligence workstream, and you will obviously recognize across the board that there's interconnections with other work streams in this work plan. Obviously, the data is a particular good example, and you have it right next to it in the screen. Now, what I want to do very briefly is just recap. Whoops, went too far. Just want to recap what these work streams are and why we have them. The first one is guidance, policy, and product support, and that is continued support to products, the development of guidance for the use of AI in the life cycle of the medicine, and the implementation of the EU AI Act. On the right-hand side, collaboration and change management, and that includes initiatives designed to continuously develop capacity and capability of the network, partners and stakeholders, and to keep ahead of the evolving field of artificial intelligence. At the bottom left, tools and technologies is about identifying and providing frameworks across the network to use AI tools to increase efficiency, to enhance understanding and analysis of data, and to support decision making. And bottom right, experimentation is to ensure a structured approach to experimentation across the network to accelerate learnings and gain new insights. Now, this is, I was counting, and this is the third time you see this, this document, this screenshot here. That is the plan on a page for the AI work stream. You can access the whole work plan if you use the QR code on the right-hand side. You can also go to Google or your favorite search engine, and search for data and AI work plan, NDSG, and it will take you to that work plan. There is a lot to digest here, and what I will try to achieve in the next few minutes is to present to you the main deliverables that we have worked on in this year. So the year is not finalized, but these are activities that we've worked on and either concluding or there's some information that is valuable for the stakeholders. And I think one of that pieces of information that is clearly influential and relevant for stakeholders is guidance development. And you've heard here already a presentation on guidance development. But just to reflect on that again, in terms of AI and PV guidance, which is in our work plan and in the MWP work plan, there is initial scoping work ongoing. And also for the clinical trial, clinical development guidance, there is initial discussions happening as we speak. What is not reflected here is the GMP Annex 22, which is not formally part of our work plan, but as you've heard from Ib, we've got an update from that side of the equation. On the middle there, transparency is key for us in terms of our development of AI and use of AI. And what we've done, as you might have seen earlier this year, is the AI Observatory report. That report was reflecting the activities that we've done or seen in 2024. And essentially 3 things come out of the report, or you can think of it in 3 thematic groups. One is what we're doing in terms of development of use of AI in the network. The other one is what we are observing coming through in submissions, very high level, of course. And then the final one is sort of the horizon scanning elements of it. Another piece of information that I think is useful is that we created a group focused on AI with industry stakeholders, and we've just had this month the first meeting of that group, and this is an open forum for discussion with key stakeholders on this aspect. And finally, in terms of regulatory convergence, you also heard from Jorg yesterday on what we're doing in terms of collaboration, in particular with FDA at this point in time, and sort of initial thoughts around future global convergence opportunities. For the tools and technologies element, we've had just now Kim presenting on the consultation that we conducted of the EMRN, the network, and how we are prioritizing those use cases, and that information will come through in the next couple of months, and we'll have more to share in a short future. On the right-hand side, actually, you've not heard of this today yet. There is no communication either today or yesterday. But beyond creating or developing these priority use cases, we also need to understand, as a network, how do we share those use cases and those tools. And there is activity around creating an AI tools framework that will facilitate access to information and promote accessibility to tools. Now, to be clear, this AI tools framework supports the sharing of tools created by the agencies for the agencies. This is very much an internal activity. In terms of literacy, there have been several literacy initiatives which I think merit acknowledgement. There is, from the EMA side, there is a significant literacy initiative that is ongoing. It is critical to do literacy initiatives for all of our drivers that Jorg presented yesterday. We need to know how to regulate these technologies, to assess it, to use it to improve efficiency and productivity, and to increase insight into data. And that literacy approach will acknowledge the different personas that we may have across the network. That has been currently at EMA level, but there is a campaign that is being planned for a broader network-wide initiative. In terms of collaborations, we've also heard yesterday Jorg talk about the collaborations with ICMA, and even today Kim did a little brief summary of what the collaboration with the EU agency network entails. And then on the right-hand side, I think it's relevant to point out the workshop as a critical event for stakeholder engagement. You've seen, if you've looked at this current work plan and the previous work plan, that we've made alterations to the work plan. We've added certain elements, and those are also informed by discussions we have in this annual workshop. And finally, in terms of experimentation, I think two things are critical to point out. The first one is that we've made some changes on how we experiment, and we created this experimentation runway, which I'm not going to detail in very fine-tunedly, but to point out that this is essentially an approach to accelerate strategic innovation, help digital innovation teams align efforts, share knowledge, and maximize impact. And then on the right-hand side, you have seen the research priorities, which is what Marie, my colleague, has presented earlier on. So wrapping up. So this is our menu for next year, sort of broad strokes. Guidance development is still very much part of that menu. It's an important ingredient in what we're trying to do with the work plan. Exploring international convergence will be part of the menu as well. Stakeholder engagement, as always, is a critical activity that we've implemented in the work plan. Literacy needs to continue and certainly is a fluid activity that requires updating. And finally, as Kim was presenting earlier, we also have the AI tools priorities that we need to work on. And thank you very much for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you. So thanks very much, Luis. Very clear. There's been a lot going on. It was very interesting when we adopted the first work plan, which was 2 years ago. Many people said that's very ambitious, and I think it was ambitious. But I think we needed to be ambitious because, as many people have said over the last day and a half, things are moving very fast, and we need to be running to keep up, and ideally slightly ahead. So with that, we're now going to move to some different stakeholder perspectives on what different people consider priorities for the next couple of years. And this is then the core of what will be in the Slido for different people to vote up. I'm going to slightly change the order just because of flights and so on, and just in case we overrun by a few minutes. I'm going to start with Stephen Gilbert, who is at the Technical University of Dresden, was previously in the medtech and digital industries before going back to academia in 2022 in Dresden. And it's a nice title. He's Europe's first full professor of medical device regulatory science for AI and digital health. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have somebody else ever with exactly the same job title. But good to be the first, Stephen. Over to you.
Thank you for the introduction, Peter. The areas from the work plan that really appeal to me are the areas of intersection on international alignment and on policy. But perhaps on policy first, I may have scared people a little bit with my comments on a code red. And I honestly believe that we do need to maybe have a code red, but I work deeply within the regulatory system on collaborating where we try and get the current system to work. One of the critical questions that's already come up is the area of sandboxes. Sandboxes are our only means, our only approach to try and get the flexibility we need for adaptive regulation to work within the EU. We have sandboxes mentioned or in the draft of the new pharmaceutical product regulation for the pharmacy side. We have sandboxes on the medical device side and on the AI side within the AI Act. Now, we are a little bit behind in sandboxes in Europe, in the EU. So the UK is way advanced. They've already had a sandbox with the first cohort through with concentrated and large language model enabled medical devices. They're starting their second cohort, one of the most interesting sandboxes in the world. It includes the NHS Federated Learning Decision Support System, influencing ambient scribing, influencing drug prescription across the EU. I am working on this scheme already, on these things already within the Bridge grant, just started, funded by the IHI, which involves EMA, which involves BFARM, which involves Team Notified Body. And that is trying to work towards getting these things together. I'm also, I've worked alongside DG Santé, DG RTD, with a report that's about to come out on the challenges to innovation, the fact that we can't focus on an individual company making it through the regulatory spaghetti as evidence that we're succeeding in Europe. We need to really look at across the market that we are succeeding in building big industries and providing the new tools to patients. My kind of question would be, how are we going to work to bring sandboxes together to actually run the most exciting, the most advanced, further than what anybody else has done sandboxes? And the critical area, I know I'm speaking a bit long, is the intersection between AI, large language models in the patient hands, those that our patients are interacting with, to the pathways to drugs, to the pathways of decision support, to the pathways of monitoring drugs. This is already a critically important area. You may be aware that that Google have rolled out in Saudi Arabia, through the Ministry of Health in Saudi Arabia, a large language personal assistant for every citizen. That is the reality of where research is. We need to be actually building and saying, how would we regulate such technologies? It's already happening, so we have to regulate it. We can't regulate it through the current mechanisms in the AI Act, certainly without sandboxes.
And if you were going to just give me, just in 3 words, so sandbox, international alignment, and the third, or?
Sandboxes is so important that I would actually take sandboxes. So
that's number 1 and number 2.
Number 1 and 2, and really getting them going in collaboration. So getting what, trying to catch up with the race in sandboxes, and not catching up with the race, accepting being 5-10 years behind, actually trying to get ahead of the line. So look at the most advanced sandbox and say, how can we go even further in sandboxes? Sandboxes don't mean danger. Sandboxes mean adapt the regulation based on what we need.
Okay, so I love that. So it's sandbox, international alignment. Okay, so then with that, let's go to Tom Brookland, Regulatory Science Policy Leader at Roche and the Chair of the FPIR Digital Health Working Group. Tom, please.
Thanks, Peter. Good afternoon, everyone. So on behalf of industry and all the trade groups listed on the right-hand side here, The priorities from our side, and maybe before I do that, just to acknowledge and say thanks to the EMA and the network. At last year's workshop at this time, I think the industry asks at that point were a paper on terminologies, a paper on principles, a focus group, and pursuing guidance, ideally in the form of a Q&A. And we realized those are all most, if not all, are part of the work plan. So thank you for including those.
The listening regulators, that's
go.
what we call ourselves.
So for today, the top three that we've put, perhaps unsurprisingly, to pursue and prioritize the planned guidances in the areas of pharmacovigilance and clinical development. Again, preferable would be a Q&A format just to allow a bit more time to sort of co-learn together before formal guidance is issued. We're looking forward to the principles and terminologies paper, and we also appreciate for a GMP side the IBS piece on Annex 22 earlier, which clearly needs further discussion. The second priority we would ask for is to continue the co-sharing and the co-learning of use cases, both from research and academics, industry and regulators. I really appreciated the open discussion amongst the regulators yesterday. So thanks for being really transparent on your thoughts on your own use cases of AI and where you think it's going. And then thirdly, third priority is international harmonization. Again, really enjoyed the session that Jörg and Annie hosted yesterday, and we would only encourage the EMA and the network to continue that kind of work around global convergence. So in summary, perhaps not unsurprising asks from an industry side, but these are important for us. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Very clear. And they'll be into the Slido for people to think about. Alice Accaroni from the European Academy of Neurology where's Alice? There's Alice. Sorry, Alice, I hadn't made contact with you earlier in the workshop. So Alice is a consultant in neurology in Geneva. She's the co-chair of the European Academy of Neurology's Task Force on AI and has also worked in a European Brain Council committee that's developed the European Charter for Responsible Neurotechnology, among many other things. Alice, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this important workshop. I wanted to mention that I'm here on the behalf of the European Academy of Neurology, but I'm also representing the European Union of General Practitioners and the European Community Pharmacists. And with regard to this, I would like to thank Branka Lazic and Ivan Bellomo, the representative of these two organizations who helped me develop, and we co-developed the top three priorities that I will present in a few seconds. So our organizations represent professionals who see patients on a daily basis. They may be already using AI tools in their daily practice. And we also represent researchers who are in multi-disciplinary teams who are developing these tools. So this perspective allows us to see the real world needs that AI could meet, but also the practical challenges that we could face when trying to ensure its safe use in our fields. So our first priority that we defined, as I mentioned, with the other two organizations are AI literacy. So we're very happy to see that this is one of the key themes for EMA for 2026, and co-creation. Because we heard in the previous talk that it's very important to integrate the different perspectives on the different AI tools in the life cycle of AI tools, because these can bring also ideas on the possible challenges that we could face when the tool is used in real world scenarios. So ethicists, and from our perspective, having the clinician and the patient in the loop is very important. And if we look at the data that was presented in the recent report from the WHO Europe region unit on AI in healthcare, not so many countries, member states include patients in the AI tool lifecycle. And I think this is quite important because, for example, I was hearing yesterday the talk about lupus GPT. It was very interesting. However, I didn't hear a lot about the potential emotional impact of the responses that patients receive from the GPT. And the GPT is not able, for now, to read emotions of patients reading and receiving that information. And there is also a problem of AI literacy and also digital capacity in different member states. So we need to consider these aspects as well. And the other aspect that I felt interesting in the previous presentation was that a lot of professionals use AI tools, but they have a basic knowledge of AI tools. This is quite scary from our perspective. The second point that we wanted to highlight is also the regulation harmonization and a kind of supportive oversight at the European level. Always mentioning the same reports that I indicated before, even though many countries are trying to to create responses to the legal gaps, only 8% of member states have defined health-specific AI legislation. Only 8% of member states also define clear liability indications, and only 6% have clear regulations on the use of generative AI in healthcare settings. So these are gaps that we really need to fill if you want to go together as a society, including patients, general public, ethicists, and other important stakeholders towards the future of AI, without leaving other countries behind, because we risk to have two Europes at two different speeds, because there are different digital capacity, legal uncertainties, and that can also lead to the fact that some professionals will not feel safe to use these tools that maybe are already like potentially transformative, and others maybe use tools that are not actually safe. And the third point is concerning the data foundations of AI tools. So we know that at present the European data, healthcare data, is fragmented, and there is limited space for safe cross-border exchange. And furthermore, we really need to include other real-world data, for example, communities. So we have a lot of information coming from our society, from our organizations regarding community, and this information is not completely included into the European health data space. So we really advocate for transforming the European health data space into a truly federated, privacy-preserving, interoperable framework that could help integrate with different existing systems and help to have a safe and trustworthy exchange of health data, and also expertise enabling the different member states to really access to these advantages, these tools, and to have a better representation of the different realities across member states of healthcare settings. Thank you so much.
So thank you. And thank you also for having reached out to different healthcare professional groups, because that's not always so easy. Just two very quick comments, actually. You talked about AI literacy. Are you talking about, because the literacy that was in our work plan was literacy of the regulators, actually, and our own compliance with AI Act, etc., and being able to advise the industry as experts. But I guess the literacy you're talking about is the general population, or?
Not only. So the general population patients, and for example, we are conducting surveys among in our organizations. For example, Branka Lazic shared with me the data coming from GPs, and one of the main field of potential development that the GPs thought was fundamental is developing AI literacy. And it's the same for neurologists. So we've done a survey, we're currently doing a survey among our members, and we realized that one of the main gaps that they identified was AI literacy. It's the same for me. I train as a medical doctor, and recently, I'm not that old, and I haven't received any formal training on that or informal training, so I had to look myself for the information. And I think this should be embedded into our clinical training as we are in a world and we're moving towards a world that uses more and more AI tools.
Very good. And there was a recent publication talking about how trust was the key determinant of uptake, and trust is correlated very closely with understanding and literacy. So that's a really interesting point. So let's move on. So thank you very much for that. And hear from Gregorio Sambataro from the European Heart Network. Gregorio, over to you, sir.
Oh, thank you very much for this today. Very interesting and very insightful. So we try to bring our patient perspective, because before coming here, I asked to our patient consultant, which could be the priorities, like in order to share and to have their opinion. And they told me about simple things that they can help in their day-to-day life, in their daily life. Sometimes simple things are the most efficient and effective, let's say. So, for instance, they told us that AI could review the patient medication to ensure they work well together, because sometimes they receive prescription and medicine are different from different specialists, but they don't know how, or if they work together or they interact safely. So AI could help in analyzing the chemical compounds and the components of each drugs and identify risks, and also helping to prevent some harmful combination. This I found very important. And linked to this, another priority is that AI can help in a tracking system, and also as a reminder. as you know, the population, I am from Italy, for instance, and it's getting older and older, it's aging. This is a problem. Sometimes people don't remind which medication to take, or if they forget it, today I take it or not. And this, if AI could assist individually this patient, could be an help and also relief for caregiver, also for relatives, for family, because we in the daily life we have many things to remind, and sometimes we forget these things, and we cannot help, even though, for instance, I cannot remember the pills or the drugs that my mother or my father needs. So this could be also a simple help, and in this AI we believe it can assist. Another priority, still on the patient perspective, the patient understanding. AI could help in understanding the patient in real life circumstances, in real life experience, but this require a robust reference data set and database, and I think we don't have yet. Till now, only real world data and structural real world data could be collected by the patient at their home, on their daily life. And this remain essential according to us. So meaning that at the moment the patient reported experience remain essential. And today we have already talked about the importance of the recruitment of patients in a clinical trial, and also in validating the deliverables in the project. We are responsible of Horizons or Your for Health project, in which we realize or we implement deliverables, and the patient, especially the patient consultants, that they have digital literacy, they are, let's say, nerd, and they help us very much. And another thing that I was thinking myself is the following. And if AI can help a lot in an important sector, as it is the health that is related to all of us, this could create a virtuous cycle, meaning that the time we save for having the possibility of using AI could be time used for again interacting as a human, and especially for elderly people, because AI is a tool, we said many times, it's a very important, effective, but the human interaction is still important, and sometimes, especially for elderly patient, is the only one that they have, and we cannot, how can I say, substitute totally, at least. Thank you.
So thanks very much, and thank you for a very clear slide, which helps with us with our understanding. So we're now going to move from the human patients to the cats and the dogs and the fish and the cows and the sheep and the horses and the bees. Diana Teixeira from Animal Health Europe. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much again for including us and letting us be here today to represent not only Animal Health Europe members, but the AVC members and the Access Vet members, which can be very challenging sometimes to coordinate. But I think it was a very interesting work that we did in trying to find priorities that are common, not only between competitors that are our members, they are competitors in the end of the day, but also between other associations that sometimes don't really share the priorities of our association. So thank you so much for the trust also to these associations to let me be here and speak for them. So going to the real priorities and starting with the cats and dogs and all the species that are not human, I would say that our first priority is to ensure that there is consideration for veterinary specificities. And while we have a lot of areas where we align with human medicine, we also need a tailored approach in some of the questions. And well, allow me to illustrate it, because my intention is really not to drop a statement. So we have very significant differences, and I will give you at least 4. So one is the market structure. We are way smaller, way more fragmented, and we are limited in terms of economies of scale, of course. Then we have funding constraints because apart from the fact that we have much more difficulty in assessing the public money for funding, we don't have a social security that is supporting the veterinary healthcare system. So in the end, although the investments are actually private investments and they are much more depending on the ratio of cost benefits. Then on the regulatory complexity and specificities, we have 7 major species, then we have all the minor species that include as well zoo animals and wildlife. So then we also have all the indicators that change for species and species, data types, and we have a tailored legislation for us. So we have examples like pharmacovigilance variations databases that are completely different from the human medicines. And then lastly, we have different approval pathways because we are very strict in what concerns the food safety and environmental safety. And for example, we have something that are the withdrawal periods that don't necessarily apply to the human medicines. So our actionable proposal on this priority, to not make it only a priority, it's to establish sandboxes specific for animal health, and also to have a proportionate and appropriate representation of animal health and the veterinary sector in different groups, starting by the AI industry group. Then the second priority would be common language, and this would increase the interoperability, the accuracy, the trust, and efficiency. But then what we really want to explain here is that we have huge challenges. Like the human sector, I would imagine, we have free text entries when we are reporting on pharmacovigilance, or when the veterinarians are actually reporting on disease and the cases that they deal with every day. So last week, for example, we had the veterinary big data forum, and we had an example of a case study where they were looking at the use of antibiotics in 133 German veterinary practices, and they ended up with 25,000 different entries only to report data variations on what terms people used. But then there is more than that, because the human and veterinary sectors have very disconnected vocabularies, even though we have a lot of shared diseases and shared compounds. So some preliminary work was made already in the One Health IGP, and maybe this could be something that could be taken up as well in this sense. And then a little bit of alignment between the EU authorities would be very nice. So actionable proposals here, we would say cross-sector vocabularies, and then a repository that is centralized for AI terminology as well, not only on the medicine part. And very lastly, we think that collaboration should be really a priority, because collaboration is the glue of all priorities. We go alone much faster probably, but we will never reach the same endpoint if we go alone. So we think that this is a learning journey for everyone. No one has all the answers at this point for sure, but if we work together, maybe we can actually tackle many challenges that are persistently identified. And by breaking the silos and learning from each other, we can do it much more effectively. So our actionable proposal here would be to leverage the lessons that are coming from other sectors, from other authorities, from other parts of the world, and become more preventative than actually reactive, like the medicine itself should be. So we can actually anticipate risks and stop reacting only to them. So the sector also understands that compliance with regulation, it's a non-negotiable, but especially for SMEs, it's very, very difficult to actually understand what they need to comply with. And we're doing a huge work with the big companies at Animal Health Europe. And I really thank the big guys to help us with this and trying to make something for the smaller ones and for the associations as well. But I think we should all collaborate in this, and not only Animal Health Europe trying to go there, because this is something that I'm sure everyone is working on, the AI use policies. So this is something that we could definitely try to be more in touch with everyone. And then very, very last point, I think in terms of collaboration, we could be doing training together. And I see that literacy is being implemented a lot in EMA. Why are we not making joint literacy training between industry and EMA, for example? And then we have the joint events and dialogues that we really commend, of course, and this is great, and I hope it really continues. But then we could be doing, for example, joint projects, and of course we have working groups, and this is great again. So congratulations again for EMA to actually uptake the need and the ask to have this collaborative platform to have formal input from stakeholders.
So thanks very much indeed. Just maybe a comment, because we're going to go to the Slido in a moment, and I just want to emphasize that quantitative assessment can be very misleading, because almost certainly some of the vet suggestions will not get voted up because there won't be that many vet representatives or stakeholders on the call. But I just want to emphasize that we're not just going to look at the things that come out top. That's more just to stimulate the discussion. We're listening very carefully. I also wanted to just make the point that the Network Data Steering Group is human and animal medicines. So we should, most of the outputs will be for both sectors and hopefully should apply, including terminology, for example. At the same time, there may sometimes be utility in having vet-specific fora for more specialist discussions, but I think finding that right balance is what we try to do, so thank you for that feedback. Now, we've had the presentation or the priorities from 3 different stakeholder groups. Luis, you have been diligently listening and making sure that they're in the Slido accurately. Do you want to just read them back? Colleagues, this is Diana, do you want to just release your mic? This is an imprecise science, okay? So don't worry too much about the commas, etc. But just read out what you've heard so that we make sure that the Slido is correct. And if something is fundamentally wrong, shout, because then we'll change it in the Slido before it goes live. Luis?
Let's go. Thank you so much, Peter. So we tried to cluster it the best we can, and we just wanted to repeat them just to be sure that we covered everything. And the first one, well, I'll say it in whatever order we have it, but explore the uses of sandboxes, consider the creation of sandboxes, regulatory guidance, progress and be more transparent on the development of guidance, EMRN AI transparency, continue to provide transparency on AI activities under the work plan, including on regulatory AI use cases, international harmonization, continue exploring opportunities for global regulatory convergence, AI for patient safety, support initiatives that leverage AI to provide reliable information to patients and enhance safe use of medicines, health data infrastructure, support the development of infrastructure to allow for research and clinical use, AI literacy, promote literacy across stakeholders, the veterinary specificities, ensure veterinary medicine specificities are considered, expand real-world data sources and consider the collection of patient-recorded real-world data, ethical AI governance, consider biomitigation and fairness in AI, and then the final 2, responsible experimentation, enable responsible experimentation, and enhance collaboration across stakeholders, including on a common language.
Any red flags? Code reds, Stephen? No?
No.
That's good. Okay, so now let's go Slido. Can we put up the QR code again, someone? Very good. So we're going to have, this is like a meditation moment. We're going to have just like 60 to 120 seconds of relaxation. You're going to go to your Slido and you're going to tell us what you think. Now, clearly, I say it again, it's an imprecise science. But it's just to stimulate the discussion, see what people are feeling strongly about today. Tell us what you think. The Slido is open to people online. The Slido is actually open, I think, to people in the who are just watching this by broadcast. I think I'm right, yes. So wherever you are out there, have your voice heard via the Slido. Keep expressing your views. It's jumping about quite a lot. So, and some of these results are quite interesting. So please just take another minute and then we'll close. Bear in mind, it's not a vote with a decision at the end of it. It's a vote to influence. Okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't know if we can close. Let's close. And then, because otherwise it's going to be moving around while we try and draw conclusions. So I'm going to ask Luis to do the hard work. Luis, just start at the top and tell us what we see.
Let's go. The voting is now closed. 111 people have commented. It does take a little bit of time to choose the three because we requested you to choose three, your top three. And the one that came out on first is international harmonization. Continue to explore opportunities for global convergence. We've then got regulatory guidance. I think we've heard a lot about this in the 2 days of the workshop. And sandboxes have come up on the third. There was a race until the end, but eventually ended up in a podium position as well. What you don't see here, I will continue to flag just in the next 2 or 3. AI literacy comes in fourth place, enhanced collaboration in fifth, AI for patient safety in sixth. That is the top half of the 12 priorities, and maybe I'll wrap it up here. You don't need to read it all at the end. Thanks.
So very interesting. I just want to get some immediate reflections from the panelists. Stephen, what do you think? You managed to make the case for sandboxes. I know you weren't the only one, but it was a very strong case you made and people were listening.
Yeah, we were watching very closely as the battle between 3 and 4. I would actually include 2 as part of 3, really. It is the sandboxes are really an area of guidance and progress on collaborative development. The sandbox is collaborative development of guidance with feedback loops, with industry, with all stakeholders, producing guidance. I was at this bridge meeting yesterday and there was a comment saying, do we need sandboxes? Actually from people within the network on creating sandboxes, can we just build guidance? The problem with current guidance and regulation, unlike the medical guidance, is we write guidance from regulators, but we never build in a degree of what our level of evidence was or any feedback loop. Sandboxes are guidance plus a level of certainty, plus what data you collect to show that the guidance was correct, plus a fast update cycle. That's all a sandbox is.
It's not the job today for the regulatory network to respond and say what we're going to do or not do. But I did just want to point out that if you Google EMA Innovation Task Force, there's actually an open invite for discussions on sandboxes. So you might want to do that. That's not necessarily the response to this survey today. Let's go to Tom. Any surprises there, Tom?
No, and I guess the comment I would make is when you look at the whole list, you could argue nothing there is, or there's nothing there that's not important. All of it's important in some ways, and just some are more important to certain stakeholders than others. So I guess the question is, how do you prioritize the priorities? But maybe, I mean, a comment on, maybe to double click on the guidance piece, because I've been thinking about this recently. And when people ask for guidance or industry asks for guidance, I think what we're really asking for is what I would call fit for purpose, meaningful guidance. And then the question becomes, well, what do you mean by that? I think meaningful guidance is something which is where stakeholders agree is actually needed. There's an actual gap that it's addressing. And I think it's also a guidance where the requirements are clear, they're really clear and understood, and that the requirements are also fair and proportionate. And I think if you tick all those boxes, you have something that looks like meaningful fit for purpose guidance. So I think that's when regulatory guidance is a term that gets thrown around a lot, but I've thought about that recently, and that's what I guess we intentionally meant when we asked for guidance. That's kind of how I would describe it.
Quite like that. Needed, clear, fair and proportionate. That sounds like some guardrails or some principles we can take forward. I think we try, but maybe we don't always have that foremost in our thinking. Let's just do the other panelists, then I might ask Carl whether you might have any reflections on what you've seen. So I'm giving you just a pre-warning that I'm going to come to you in a second. So where do we go from here? We go, I think, to Alice, please.
Yeah, I think we're very happy as most of our priorities are represented in the first top 6 priorities that have been identified. I think, as I mentioned previously, the important point is having a co-creation. And as Thomas was saying, there's no hierarchy of priorities. It's more trying to find the ones that we need to prioritize immediately and then work also on the others all together. And I think this workshop is indicative of this intention of working all together and moving as a society together towards the new developments of AI tools in the different fields that we explored. So I'm very happy to see these priorities there and to see the engagement also from your side. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. From the healthcare professional to the patient association, Gregorio?
Yes, also I'm not surprised and will be important the European health data space regulation system. And of course, so I'm also happy about the result of Slido. And again, I can also stress the importance of the patient and the importance of taking into consideration both sides. And for the rest, I hope that little by little, in the next 18 months, we will have a more clear situation about the AI in health.
Diana, I'm not surprised that some of the vet-specific ones didn't get into the top. That's just a numbers game. That's the problem with surveys and the design of surveys, and this is a kind of survey. Can we just put the Slido back up and just show the bottom half of the table? Because, sorry, Gosha, just spring that one on you at short notice. But Diana, just while that's coming up, any reflections on what you've seen?
Of course, yes. On the sandboxes, I really would like to reinforce our point on collaborate. Let's fail faster and let's fail together. And then we'll have actually a very clear path to success. I won't mention the animal specificities again, because we are quite reassured after your statements and remarks. But then on the guidance, I really need to be cautious here because we do have concerns. One of the concerns is the R&D exemption, and I will never be here to repeat the concern because I think everyone is aware, and that goes a lot in the global harmonization. Our companies are global, most of them, so we really need some regular, some certainty of the products that we are developing and the uses of AI that we are doing, that they will actually be considered and our products will not be blocked, which would be a real pity for medicines availability in Europe. But then another word of caution in terms of guidance is that the guidance needs to be really, really dynamic. And that's what we are concerned about, because these things are moving too fast. And if we have guidance that gets stuck in time and in priorities, it's like road signs. I mean, we cannot operate without road signs. Yes, true. But the road signs, if you have a lot of incidents in the same place, you need to change the sign there. Otherwise, people actually can die. And in this case, also animals can die. And well, I'm really sorry I'm not following the principle of Luis in the analogies of food. I'm also Portuguese, but maybe we just have a problem with analogies in general. But just to finish very fast with the example of the GMP Annex 22, I think this is the illustrative example that we had here today of how fast things can go. And let me just check if I missed something. Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize something else. That is, AI without data is literally like a car without fuel. We really need the data to be good. And for that, we really defend the Q-FAIR data, the quantitative, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And only there, I think we can build trust. And that goes to all the parts. It goes to the sandboxes, it goes to the collaborations, and it goes to the guidance.
Thank you, very clear. And so Tom Brooklyn from the human industries, to your three needed guidance principles: needed, clear, fair and proportionate. We add dynamic. I think I would agree with that, particularly in this very fast moving field. Carl, really interesting.
Yes, really interesting. And particularly as head of a national competent authority, it's very good to see that the harmonization is on the one side, the big topic. I was a little bit surprised that transparency is now the latest one. So I think these both have to work together. So we need transparency to harmonize. And I think the regulatory guidance, we all are asking for that and trying to find here then a common ground. We have to work on that. And yeah, the sandboxes, so that was a little bit surprise to me to bring it up to that level. And so we will look for that.
Very good. And I have to say, I wasn't expecting sandboxes to be so prominent. It didn't come out at all last year. So thank you, those that raised it. The other thing that was interesting for me was the priority given to literacy. And it may be the terminology might have changed over time, and particularly the AI Act and the legal requirements for literacy might have means that we're all using that terminology now. But we have focused internally very much over the last few, well, now as regulators on the literacy part, but literacy and what we can do together collaboratively to support different stakeholder groups sounds like something very interesting for the future. Now, we've got 5 minutes, 10 minutes max for open Q&A. So we've had lots of input, well, lots of me talking, but also panelists. But I think the floor is now open. I'm going to focus on the room because you're here. Not all stakeholder groups were represented completely in that exercise. So you may feel that your stakeholder group's voice has not been heard. Speak up. Things that you would like to see as a priority in for the European Medicines Regulatory Network in the domain of AI, right across the life cycle. Anything you'd like to see. So speak now or forever hold your peace. Please, now is your chance, madam. Sorry that we made you wait in the last session.
It's all right. Hi, this is Jane. I'm from Apipia. So basically, I agree with all those priorities and that the industry that Tom presented. But I do have a question about clarification. So we have a lot of guidances, regulations in AI, and what most important for me is that how do we implement those guidances? Because if we don't implement them, they're just no use. And how can we actually implement them and measure the effectiveness of implementation? And probably Sandbox is one of the tools we can use, but I'm a health economist now, always ask cost effectiveness or return on investment. How do we measure return on investment of the guidelines development and also implementation? That's my
Yeah, I'm not. We could have a workshop on that actually, because it's a really good question. I think maybe I'd look at. I was going to say, Stephen, you were in my mind because regulatory science is about measuring the effects of regulation, and guidance is a core part of regulation. Stephen, have you got a nice answer?
So I maybe comment with this specifically with respect to this bridge grant, which is with BFARM, EMA, and FPA. And Team Notified Body and many other partners, including Roche, etc., and including Ken yesterday from FPA. This is one of our main topics of conversation. You can't sandbox literally everything. The prioritization of what you choose to take into a sandbox is one of the key questions. And dynamic, reactive, intelligent guidance for those that you don't take into the sandbox, of course, should be generated. You need to pick on what are the single most important themes to take into a regulatory sandbox. Now, I mentioned the MHRA with their airlock, their British name for sandbox. They decided to have a sandbox which focused on the single world most important question, in my view, at the time of when they ran it last year, the year before, was AI-enabled medical devices using large language models and large language models systems for testing those. Clearly, we shouldn't repeat that. We should actually take their learnings, in my view. The Singaporeans, we also had a presentation from them yesterday, did a sandbox on telemedicine and the implementation of telemedicine across the health system in Singapore. Again, I don't think Europe should take that. As much as possible, we should use the learnings. I propose we should have a sandbox on the intersection between pharmaceuticals, the general pharmaceutical legislation, and AI at point of care. That's what I'm really working for within Bridge, that we look at that. But that would be a critical question. It would bring together where you have this compartmentalization of legislation that was mentioned in various comments before. It was mentioned by Tobias in his presentation. We have this problem of spaghetti of legislation that doesn't work together. That's the single biggest thing we need to tackle. We need to tackle the interaction between EMA, notified bodies, and the pharmaceutical regulators in individual member states when we get products which go across multiple situations, or as you've published previously in FPA, you have a situation where you have a combination device which literally is everything in the same device. Really great paper, actually, I think Ken was involved in, on exploring a device that is a matrix, it's embedded, it's an implant, it has AI chips, sensors within the implant, but it releases drugs. That's an example of something which is not a combination product in the sense of traditional sense. It literally is everything simultaneously, and you can't regulate it because you have to decide, is it a drug, is it a device? We need to acknowledge the traditional separation does not work anymore.
So you got quite a full answer, and I'm sure others could give you, but I think that's a nice approach. Sandboxing is part of the answer. There are other approaches to regulatory science, for example, looking at marketing authorization applications and looking at the application of AI and so on, which are quite well established, which could complement.
Yeah, more than I'm bargaining for. And I think in general, we just need to make better use of the use cases. And each use case could have a lot of implications in how we really adopt and implement guidelines, and we can derive a lot of lessons from that.
Couple more comments or questions or speeches, or please, Diana.
If I can react quickly also to this question, but a bit to the discussions that we have been having in terms of guidance, regulation versus guidelines, because this is a big hot potato that I'm holding with our members every time that we discuss AI, at least in our organization. There is some confusion when we start going on this domain. And honestly, for me, it's more about transparency, that than it is to go on regulating too much or creating too many guidelines or having a lot of guidance documents. Because, well, allow me again the analogy, but no one feels safe when you are driving a car that has foggy windows, right? So for me, it's really betting on the transparency to make it a priority. And then you can actually work on all these domains without having to need to go for so many documents and so many things to read and go through and comply with. So yeah, I would say the clear standards and published clear methodologies, clear validation are very important.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you, because every time we come here, we think we're up to date and we discover so much more is happening, particularly yesterday afternoon. So thanks very much for regulatory developments, including in-house. Wearing the hat of HCPWP member today, but also other hats. Sometimes things go very fast, so thanks for sharing the data from WHO. Some of us could not be in Malta to present it because I also chair the AI working stream for SPIDDH. Actually, there are not only 4 countries that have done a plan on AI and health, there are many more because the data is from last week. We worked on it last year. So as I said, it goes very fast. There is, and I see within our community, let alone for patients or the audience, a lot of confusion on what digital literacy is, on what literacy is, on who's responsible for it and who's accountable for it. And we have had, of course, some developments a couple of days ago on what is mandatory and who becomes liable for it and who can foster and safeguard it. I think the questions were magnificent in the Slido, but what I think is missing is some concrete perspective on which part of the stakeholder group is aiming for what and what can they contribute. Because harmonization is, of course, critical, particularly for harvesting innovation potential, but what can be contributed from a European perspective from patients or healthcare professionals could be much more limited than what the industry perhaps could contribute or academia. And similarly, in terms of collaboration or perhaps real-world examples and co-creation for ethics, consenting, automation, and so on, perhaps there are many more things that we could do. I think there was, you didn't mention it, someone, but there's a very nice paper for living labs and communities and so on. So I think perhaps a task for HCPWP, and I don't know if the neurologists want to take it further, is send very, very brief and concrete feedback from the HCPWP and the PCWP to you in terms of what could be contributed. Thank you.
Okay, that's a really so healthcare professional perspective, healthcare professionals working party, patients and consumers working party. I'm just decoding the acronyms there.
Thank you.
But really interesting, actually, because we're doing things at a relatively helicopter level, and actually you could have a matrix between actions and stakeholder groups, and that could be a very interesting way to look at it. I would agree. Just 2 other things that came into my mind. Luis, you used the word transparency, whereas when I heard the presentation, and it was fine, when I heard the presentations originally from the panel, it was more about sharing experience than just transparency, because transparency implies, you as the regulator have to be transparent. Whereas I understood, let's learn together and share experiences and use cases and so on. So I just wanted to make that point. I think, unless there's okay, sir, you've been silent all through the meeting. You are going to be the last stakeholder intervention today.
A lot of responsibility. Thank you, Peter. Tiago Rodrigues from Infarmed, the Portuguese National Authority. Thank you all for the presentations and contributions, and congratulations to the Network Data Steering Group. Just a direct comment to what you're saying, Peter. I just want to emphasize the importance of the AI Observatory as a dynamic and living repository identifying tools and projects that are being implemented within or outside of the authorities, but with the potential to influence or to have a potential impact on the life cycle of medicines or on the purpose of our collective missions. And a general final reflection to all. These days have been very positive because they show that we have been giving steady advances with high impact projects going on, already taking places. that already taking place. This is desirable, but at some point, in my personal view, we will be faced with the question whether to go fast or to make sure that everyone gets there in a reasonable time. In this aspect, I would like to emphasize that collaboration and change management initiatives and an open and collaborative AI approach are of the utmost importance. And I would like, but maybe next year or in the next workshop, to hear more thoughts on how we can balance steadfast innovation and experimentation with convergence and integration, especially on policy and guidance development and application, of course, and joint experimentation and common tools development. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to be very giving. Because I said you were the last intervention, and because he's my favorite AI expert, I'm actually going to give the last intervention to Gabriel Westman. Gabriel.
Thank you. Oh, the pressure. So I will address just very briefly two topics. And the first is sandboxing, and I really like the idea. And then we have tried it both on a national scale and planned some EU activities, but I do sometimes feel that we talk about it, but when it comes down to really the nitty-gritty and what concept are we supposed to sandbox? How are we really going to create this sort of gray area which is safe, which much promote development without also hindering development? Because when you put things in sandbox, you're saying these are not fully clear to proceed on. There is not enough rules for stakeholders to act. So sandboxes can actually also slow things down when there is a place to move. And this connects to guidance. And I think that sometimes I hear, oh, we're waiting for guidance, we need clarity. I do, however, believe, if you read the EMA reflection paper in good faith, you combine it with the biostats guidance and with knowledge about EU legislation, for a high-resource stakeholder and a developer, you have everything you need. There's not going to be any surprises. There's not going to be anything coming from a blind spot. I think guidance will be most helpful to sort of intermediate resource stakeholders that need to understand what type of capacities, what type of competences do we need in-house in order to implement machine learning and AI technologies in our workflows in relation to the medicinal product life cycle. So, if you're thinking about harmonization principles, I would keep my eyes open in weeks. I'm not saying too much. If I'm looking for AI in clinical development guidance, it will be months to years. I saw a question on this, will not be too specific. And I think we have agreed that the pharmacovigilance one will be Q&A one for the preliminary output. So this is at least some information that may be helpful to you. But the main message is that I think there's enough clarity for the playing field to actually proceed. And if you don't feel you can, you have to look at your own resources often. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have had a really good 2 days, and I'm going to hand over to Professor Karl Broich to give some observations, concluding remarks, please.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So we have seen in these 2 days use cases from industry, from us as regulators. We learned about the dynamics in the field. So we did have patient perspectives, particularly this morning and yesterday with the then inputs we have seen. So what we learned for our next steps at the Network Data Steering Group, I think we will update then according to the discussions we have had, the prioritizing the priorities. So very close together, many aspects we have to do at the same time. Here we have to go back to the then recommendation by Gabriel, do it stepwise, be careful. And I think we all take that into consideration. And I think your input today has extremely helpful for this. And we learned that the harmonization, that guidance is important. But I agree here with Gabriel, the reflection paper approach, then complemented by a question and answer, then documents might be the right way to react to the dynamics in the field. And I think harmonization is necessary within the European network. We have to do it with international reflections as well. And I think a lot is ahead of us, but we have to do it in the sandboxes and similar approaches. And Network Data Steering Group has a clear working plan. I think it's very much in line with what we have heard. So no real surprises. So we have to fine tune it. And so thank you very much from my side to all of your input in the discussions today and yesterday. And to close the meeting, over to you, Peter.
So thanks very much, Carl. I will add very little. I would like to thank everybody who's contributed, and that means you, but also a lot of people that aren't in the room, those are online, those who've taken the time to follow the broadcast. Lots of people were involved in putting the program together and the organizational aspects. I just want to call out two of them, Luis Pinheiro, who led on the program development, and Gosha Durka-Grabowska, who is sitting at the back of the room, who has done the lion's share of the organizational aspects and made this a seamless delivery of a complex workshop. So thank you to both of them. In fact, I might even call on you to give a round of applause. I also want to call out Alan Cornet, whose presentation yesterday opened our workshop, hearing the patient voice, but also the empowered patient and what the patients can do. And again to Julian Isler, who gave another lovely example of the empowered, informed patient and what you can do to help yourself, if you like. It's amazing how AI can be an enabler. And I think if we learn from each other, work collaboratively, we can deliver so much for healthcare. A couple of beauties. So Midnight Suns. I think we do have Midnight Sun ahead of us. I think we have things could be good as sweet corn. I've never heard that one before, Luis. But my favorite, and I do have favorites, is the Viennese ballroom, where we're all learning to dance. So thank you to Georg, I don't know where he is. Georg is in the corner there. Georg Neuwerter for that beautiful analogy. We're looking as the European Regulatory Network to deliver a fast path from innovation to safe and effective medicines. AI undoubtedly has an important role, and we will travel this journey together with you, our stakeholders, as our guide. So thank you very much and have a safe trip home. All the best.